UN Spacey Wolf Squadron. It's your Wolf Commander Wolf 10. I'm your werewolf. Here today to talk about, our time in school or whether you should go back to school. I'm having with me another wingman from another time, another place, in the time of situational control and robotics is a thing. The Maverick Hunter Saint, Brian Gil Martin.
Yay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've all had a great day today. And yes, we're going to be talking a bit, as like the title says, we'll be doing some college talk, but also if you have anything you'd like to add, just let us know in the chat and let's get this thing on the road.
Now we were supposed to have at least more members with us to talk about this this topic, but we're
Right,
gonna for now just stick to what we have so far.
right,
I haven't received no messages from any of our crewmates,
right,
so hopefully hopefully they'll pop up in at least like somewhere in the second hour.
right.
I know Trooper said he was gonna have something going on today.
Yeah,
Eloise, no messages on her with her. Leia, speaking of, you know what, I might as well just announce this right now. But Leia plus size have gone through the surgery and she's going through a good recovery. She just messaged me yesterday, I believe. Yep, she messaged me yesterday saying that she will be recovering. She also announced it yesterday as well within the UN Spacey Wolf Squadron. So Leia, if you hear this, continue to recover and we'll see you again, hopefully. Um, we're supposed to also have a guest speaker too. He'll probably come in when he's finally touched down. Dominic Powell, who will also be joining us for the manga study that's coming up on the 14th. So he's all for that one.
yep,
And without further ado, let's get the show on the road then.
yep.
So I'll just give a little brief history about my time in college, especially early freshman year, which is, you know, it was one of those situations where I had no idea of what I want to do aside from I had an idea of what I wanted to do,
Right,
but I had no goal in mind of how to achieve that. So I was mostly going in there for the art,
right,
definitely, but I had no idea of where I wanted to go with my art. I took the major as an art, art major. I never thought about taking something as a minor or switch my art major to art minor and just go into business major. If only somebody were to push me towards big business, but or rather, had I just talked with with the dean to see where I wanted to go, or at least if I had the foresight to realize that community college was only going to get me there to some degree. Community college is only a stepping stone to maybe a university, or you get a degree fast, and you find where your degree works at a certain job, you know. But I was like,
right.
I was ignorant. Let's just say that I was young and dumb.
Weren't we all?
Yep. Of course, I met a few friends there, and they were not really the type. Some of them were slacker type, and there were others that were like the really were there to get down to business and get their degree and get their career going. I could have paid more attention to the ones that were definitely there for the career end goal, and I would have followed in their footsteps a bit.
Right.
But I was following my own path, so again, I'm basically just taking the responsibility that I should have known better. I should have known better. I can't really continue to pull out every excuse out of my pocket, but I will definitely say that my time in college was fun, but then again, I shouldn't have been there to just for fun.
Right.
And I hit a few stumbling blocks here and there. I was half-assing sometimes, and there were times I did complete my work on time. And there were times I did get passing grades, either B's or C's.
Right.
Then reality hit, where I had to slow down my studies to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like my time, sometimes, and until I officially dropped out and try to go back to some degree when I went to a private college, and then I dropped out and I got kicked out of that one because I got lazy.
Right. That
They
happens.
could they couldn't do that. That's all, again, that's all my fault.
At least you're
That's
honest
that's like
about it. Other people will
mhm.
just make excuses for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's mainly my fault. I, again, never knew what it is that I want to do in college,
Right.
and I think that's a lot of things that's plaguing most youngsters going into college, fresh into college. Is like they have no journey to think of to go through college like that.
Mm.
They are always they're being hit with these grandiose thought process. Like, you go in there, and of course Trooper has said this so many times. It's like they're been taught that you go there, you get this BS degree, or at least these days now, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that too, or more about that. But
Right.
like you get these people that have these new programs that's supposed to guarantee employment with a shit degree that ain't gonna really take them anywhere. And Tim Pool, even, I had to bring up Tim Pool. Tim Pool brought this up. It's like you got this woman studies degree, and yet you're still working at a Starbucks.
Oh yes. Isn't that always the truth?
You got situations like that where they have these, like, I hear things, right.
Right.
I hear things like that. I'm like, they got a degree on that.
Uh-huh.
They got a degree for that. What is that for? What does women studies have
Hmm.
anything to do with with you getting a job?
Well, that's the
Unless
thing.
you're studying women.
Well,
Go
that's the
ahead.
thing. It's not really meant to be. It's just there to, it's basically there to make you, an activist. And
That, and before that, it was people people are treating degrees these days as to pull out as a trump card to say, yeah, I'm smart, I got a degree.
yeah, I am so smart. SMRT smart.
I am the smarts. I am the smarts.
Oh yeah.
But going back to me, yeah, my experience with college, and I try to go back to community college, met a few people there too. Again, still studying for the arts. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going nowhere trying to study for the arts. You know, I'm
Well,
always just start working. Just get out there and get a job, which is where I'm at today. And now the job is on standby until we get equipment fixed.
I hear. Well, that's always the thing with college that you have to really know what you want to do, regardless of what you're trying to study. Like if you say you're going into the arts, for example, we'll use your example.
Mm,
Like, okay, what kind of arts? Are you going into like entertainment arts? Are you going to be like
exactly,
these guys that are in like going into the museum? You're going to make like are you going to be like the next Michelangelo or something, or Michelangelo? Excuse me. Or I
dude.
mean, what are you doing?
Imagine if I was a curator.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah.
I did make mention of this before. I once, my original career path was archaeology.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yep, my original when I was young, it was thanks to Jurassic Park. I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Ah, that's interesting.
Never thought, never in my mind did I think like, well, I have to travel if I
Right.
wanted to do archaeology. I thought
Interesting.
it was all about digging bones up and digging bones in locations. I'm like, yeah, but like archaeology is more than just digging up dinosaur bones. Like, you could discover ancient civilizations and discover fragments of maybe a sword lost to time from
Oh
a
yeah.
great battle.
You can find a number of things in archaeology. You can find like
Yep.
old tools and crap,
Fossilized plants, ancient plants.
petrified wood.
Yep. But now I'm dream the little boy has grown up and he's now lost interest in archaeology.
Mm-hmm. That happens. You grow in and out of things when you get older. Excuse
Though
me.
I will say, I still admire those who find, the most craziest things via
It's a,
archaeology.
it's it's a
And
sight to behold.
wouldn't you believe that now archaeology is being polluted by the woke?
Oh, it would not surprise me in the least. I mean, those guys will plant their flag in just about anything they can get their grubby hands on.
Hmm. But I'm not here to talk about archaeology all day. I'm here to talk about school.
I guess it'll be my turn then.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, unlike Wolfie here, I actually did not go to college, and because I was in a similar place where I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I instead just went straight to work, plain and simple. I worked through high school for my last couple of high school years. I used to work for the A&P. I was the guy that just collected the carts every evening just to get them in, and that would be
I'll
my
get you.
job.
Then you get the hell out of my face and get over that AMP.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and that was how I would. That's basically how I would just like fund myself. I was, as you know, I am a gamer, so I was, buying video games with this stuff. So, so I remember, I forget what happened to it, but eventually I stopped working for the AMP. Then I went to a shop where I did much of the same thing, and it was friggin' miserable there too. So eventually I ended up answering. Oh, yeah,
Keep talking.
yeah. So eventually I ended up answering an ad for my current job where they needed somebody who was a laborer, and so they basically wanted someone to be like someone who would clean toilets, sweep floors, mop, and all that. Now I had previous experience through a summer job through the something called the Brick Primary Learning Center, where I was doing janitor work there as well, and doing things like vacuuming, stripping floors, mopping, cleaning bathrooms, that sort of thing. And I ended up getting a good reference from my old boss at that job, and that's how I got the job I have now. I've had it for about 17 years now. The rest is history.
Yep. Yep. Well, you can talk about that more when we do the jobs one, which I'm very excited about. Where we
Oh
talk
yeah,
about how to get a job and job opportunities. This might gonna have to be a short stream for the first time in the history of Wolf Commander Rambles, or at least in a
really,
long time in Wolf Commander Rambles. Which usually the short streams are mostly the rewatches at times,
yeah.
but this might be a short stream because
Well, it might also
yeah,
depend on
'cause
when Dominic Powell can get in, because I'm sure he's probably got something that he likes to share with us.
we'll see. We'll try to stretch it out as best we can. The only thing I can say is while we're uh while we're sitting here worrying about what what this, we can talk a little bit about the what the new way of how they're teaching us in school, or at least how the new prominent factor in school now,
Yeah.
which is
Mm-hmm.
predicated by the whole no student left behind situation that
Well,
arose like what around the early aughts or the
that yeah, it was definitely sometime in like the Bush years with No Child Left Behind, which was something I never agreed with.
hmm
Eventually, you're going to
like
have to leave some kids behind because they just can't hack it in college. And keep in mind, the world needs butchers too. Not everybody's going to go up to be like this big intellectual with the big ideas. It's going to set the world on fire.
well the thing is also to take into account is that you have to really evaluate what goes on with the child, what's really going on with the child, like you have to,
Right.
like, some there are times you have to be in the household's business to
Right.
some degree
Exactly.
of what. but of what legality you have to go through to do so. You have to be able to see what's going on with the child's household.
Right. Hey, Victoria Fagbell. Hey, good to see you.
What I'm saying is that there are some factors that tend to prevent the child from learning at the rate that you expect them to.
Mm,
And of course this is something that we talked about in the parent streams, where
right.
the household prevents the child from studying properly. The the way how the house is ran at times, especially
Yeah.
if it's a single parent household, and there's more kids in the single parent household, which again
Mm,
goes back. The responsibility falls back onto the parent first and
right.
foremost.
I think I,
And I don't get passed on both parents. Both parents are at fault on that front.
Yep.
Let's put it that way. The father and the mother.
Yep. Which also reminds me of a video that Aiden Paladin did some time ago about the problems with home having an effect on a child's ability to get a good education and whatnot.
Hmm.
There's an older video. It's like you might be able to track it down sometime if you ever some of you
Probably
guys haven't.
watched it. Probably
Yeah,
put it in the back of my mind.
yeah. Well, the thing is, it all begins in the home. Like if the home situation is no good, like the kid is gonna have a very hard go of it, even if they're not doomed to fail from the start.
Another thing is, yeah, that's one thing that Denzel Washington himself brought up as well.
Right.
Is that it always be like you have to have your home in check. Like it starts in the home.
Clean your room,
That's
Bucko.
on. Hell lobster. But schooling, yeah. As far as education concerned, like you have to it's getting to a point where now like we understand that kids are being left to the wolves too long, far too much.
Oh yeah,
Even by double parent households, like
yeah,
there are even times where the parents are too ineffectual of their
right.
child's upbringing. We notice that there's a lot of parents that tend to treat their children as burdens more than just children.
Don't I know it?
So they always going through life expecting that their child are doing something good in their schooling.
Right,
They're in the school,
right.
doing their ABCs, one, two, threes, and whatnot, and what have you.
Yeah,
But then you got the ones then they get the eye opener when the child comes back, especially
yeah.
when those that have been turned into activists. And
Mm,
you got the ones that are actually when they actually wake up to that reality, they start fighting back. You got
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But then you still got the ones that are just like in the impoverished neighborhoods
Right,
that are not learning anything. Most due to the schools are being mismanaged,
right.
completely mismanaged.
Oh yeah.
You got the government, not the government, but the mayoral representatives in those cities that really doesn't do much to improve the schools.
It's like the freeholders,
You
I
could say
guess.
that. But you also got the ones that do something, but the solution they arrive upon, more inclusion, more
Yeah.
inclusion.
How about
Yeah,
no? Because them being included doesn't mean that they're guaranteed a good education.
well, that's another thing is that they think that you know you talk about that whole inclusion stuff. I'm like, but your school still needs books,
Yup. And the
and
students
not
in
just
general need to know what it is they want to learn and what they're going to do with it once they hit adulthood.
they also yeah they tend to ignore the real issue, which is a resource issue. And
Yeah,
what a and well, technically the technical term would be resource management. They have a total lack of resource management.
yeah. That's among other things
And
too.
and when they do have resources, they spend it on programs that really don't help much.
They
It's like
don't.
how does gender studies help a person know how to calculate their lives, or at least, as Trooper once said earlier, is the fact that they don't teach kids what to do when they get out into the real world.
No, they don't. They don't even teach them to even be leaders. They just teach them to be workers.
Hmm.
That's something that Schooner brought up the last time we talked about this. I think it was like the previous stream this week.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're not being
Trooper even
taught to
made
be.
that note too.
I think it was well because you even see it reflected in some of the writing today, where everybody's just literally writing the same story, and it's all because they're not taught to be innovators. They're taught to just follow trends, do what everybody else is doing, but they act like there's like so original and crap, and no, you're not. You're derivative.
Hang on,
Hmm.
lost my train of thought again. Yeah, you're training somebody to be an employee, not an employer at times.
Pretty much.
Like you don't teach them to strive to be more than just an employee. But then
Yeah.
again, who wants competition in this day and age?
Good point.
Again, parroting troopers uh lines here. You know, even if you want, like nobody is preparing their company for the next successor who will succeed them once they leave. They want to keep, you know, it really is a power play sometimes within companies, and
Yeah.
definitely within schools and schoolings when they don't want to push you to be that leader
Right.
per se. They want you to be, they push you to be that cog in the machine in schooling, and it
Well,
definitely works in the schooling. And at worse, they're bringing it into the household, where the household should be preparing a child to be a leader.
exactly. They should be preparing them to be a mom and dad or their own.
Now I'm not the one who always advocate that a person goal in life should be to raise a new family after the family that raised them.
Right.
What I am saying is, at some point you got to make that decision whether or not you want to still be a follower, or whether you want to be a leader. Followers don't get to choose, or decide where their end goals are unless they become a leader.
No, they do not. Beggars cannot be choosers, as they say.
And I was always a proud proponent of, if you're gonna follow, at least follow a good leader, or at least have the common sense to know who is doing a good job in leadership. Don't just be blindly following somebody because they spoke to you good, or they say that you're his friend, or her friend. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like
Don't just follow the logic of because you were nice to me. They gotta are what are they doing for you as a person? Are they teaching you to
mhm.
step up and eventually be a leader, or are you just one of their little cronies?
And that's one that really stood out to me when it came out to Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
Back to, again, me
Berserk.
sucking the dick of Berserk.
Right.
He says that he's like they're my soldiers, and they are loyal, but that doesn't make them my friend.
Yep.
Like they're willing to die for my dream and everything, but that doesn't make them my friend. Only a man who can supersede me, or follow his own dream, even if it means opposing me, can I truly call him as a friend.
Yep. That's a bit of a twisted logic there.
Well, that was him waxing philosophically at something that he didn't take into heart himself, or at least he
Mm.
didn't. He never took to account that there could be one person out there that could supersede him.
And that person was Guts.
Yep. Or at least he didn't think it would have been him to do that.
Right.
He figured Gus would have been with him uh for the rest of his days.
Mm.
Hate to
And
break it to you, Griffin, but that's not how that works. Or at least you should took your own advice to heart.
yeah, practice what you preach.
But we're not here to talk about manga. We're here to talk about school. So I'm trying to get this back on track. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, the school thing is not to mention like a lot of the stuff they teach in schools these days is just propaganda.
Hmm.
Like it's not designed to really, it's not designed again to make you think for yourself. They lead you to a conclusion as opposed to just giving you all the facts and letting you figure out your how you interpret that for yourself. Well, if you're still there.
I'm still here. Just keep talking.
Yeah, and like I've been hearing stories all day long about how certain college professors will punish students that who write essays that disagree with whatever conclusion it is they want them to write. Wolf, are you familiar with this at all?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I think we all are.
we are getting some pushback. We
Yeah,
make no mistake about that. Like even though we come to this topic half cocked. Like
right.
I will say this, that we are seeing some pushback from
Yeah,
parents and teachers, especially with the whole critical race theory thing. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? We mentioned that whole shindig a few times in media streams that was unrelated to the stream, but like I will say I'm glad that there are parents out there that are pushing back on this. Like if try to keep in touch with my family to see if anything has changed since then within the schooling.
right.
Um, I'll make sure to inform you guys if anything like that has been
Mm,
happening within the schools. But I know I would throw my hat in there if I hear that my nephews and nieces are walking into the classroom and there's a BLM flag instead of the American flag in the classroom.
same
First
here.
and foremost, if I had to go for a visit to LA, I would definitely would love to go to the schools and see what the schools are like at my niece and nephew's schooling.
Right.
Because like they're telling me that they're learning the ABCs 1, 2, 3s and they're learning through the tablets and stuff like that too
Yeah.
sometimes, but they're actually going back to the school to do PE now, physically going back to school. And I'm like, I really hope they're not going back to these critical race theory type BS schoolings, man.
Yeah. One can
Hopefully they
hope.
are.
Well, they're trying to
Yeah.
slip that in there now, or they want everybody to get in on this critical race theory.
Hmm.
Like, it's literally just planting their flag and making sure their ideas are the only ones in town that everyone knows and agrees with.
I just know one thing: if that ever comes to pass, I'm gonna be at that fucking city hall.
Do it.
I'm like I was growing up in I was growing up in the projects, okay,
Right.
and there were ones that the
Lost your train of thought.
trooper, no trooper just messaged he'll be here soon. Last time,
All right. Cool.
somewhere in the hour mark or the second hour.
Yeah. Avocado time, as he says it.
Yep. But yeah, like I'll be talking like man. When I was growing up, I was taught the Bill of Rights. I was taught the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, the history. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't really as overly simplified as people try to make it out to be these days.
Right.
And there once that I was ever told that I wasn't going to amount to anything. I
Oh,
was never
okay.
told that everything that I do was because the white man did it for me. I was
Right.
never taught that regardless of what I've done in life, all I am ever going to be is a slave. That was my growing up and schooling. For
Right.
you guys to come around and tell this to my nieces and nephews and any other youngin in my family tree, any young cousin that was brought into this world, to tell them that all they're ever going to be is just nothing but slaves, regardless of what they put their mind to. that regardless of what they do in life, they're still being oppressed, which is which is baloney.
Yeah, it's BS.
I'm trying to make it so where I don't swear there.
Yeah, I hear it. Trying to keep it classy because we do have those members of our audience.
Oh no, I'm saying like if I have to be here and see how I gotta keep it classy
Yeah.
to get my point across. I was like I'm, and I
Yep.
will lead with I was born a free man. I will die a free man. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? I was never raised in the time of slavery,
Nope. None of us were. So it's like, why do we keep harping on this?
and I was never raised around Jim Crow. I was
Nope.
never raised around any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Victor. I'll read that pretty soon. I like for anybody to really be teaching my niece and nephews that they're still slaves. It's like that's ludicrous. That's completely
Yeah.
ludicrous.
I dare say it's even a bit racist too.
Yep. Or like the fact that they're really trying to get black parents to tell kids to fear the police.
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. I mean, there's things that are good about the police and things that are bad, but to teach people that they should just fear every single one of them wholesale, that can't be good for them at all.
It's like what like how we have come around to a time where they're being taught to, especially in the schools, they're taught that the kids that the police are most likely are going to kill more blacks when it's really the criminals that you should be more afraid of.
Yeah, they'll never talk about the black on black crime for obvious reasons.
Well, they're not going to talk about the criminals, period. But even if they do talk about the criminals, it's always going to be that rhetoric where every man is out there to get you.
Yep.
If you're a woman, they're out
Yep.
there to get you.
Mm-hmm.
If there ever is a minority that committed a crime, well, they're going to make excuses for them, especially
Mm-hmm.
if they're a woman.
Oh, definitely.
They're
Yeah.
trying to paint they're trying to teach the kids, to paint the criminals with a sympathy stroke.
Well, they've been doing that for decades. Like, I think there was like there
No,
used to be this narrative where it's like the criminals aren't really that bad. They're just oppressed or misunderstood, and they just need like whatever mushy, you know, pie in the sky BS that they were trying to sell at a given decade.
you could be right on that, or at least you are right on that front, because I think there has been some writings in the texts to prove that. Now, granted, there like I'm not gonna pretend that there are criminals that are probably that are probably innocent people
Definitely.
and are fall people. I'm not gonna ignore that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like you can call what I'm doing a generalization,
Hmm.
but sometimes I have to go that route because not everybody's story is the same story.
No, it is not.
Not every criminal story is the same sob story.
Nope.
Some criminals
Some
go
people
ahead.
just do it because they just want to watch the world burn. That sometimes is all there is to it. I think that's a hard thing for people to accept that there is elemental evil in this world.
Problem is that again that's taught in schools to fear the cops more than the
Yeah.
criminals
It's probably
because
going to get to the point where they fear the superhero more than the supervillain.
they're already doing that.
Oh yeah.
The thing again, the thing is that when you teach that, it's like you want to, hey child, you want to do something, you want to do something to protect yourself against the criminal, but unfortunately, you're going to be fearing you're going to be fearing the backlash.
Yep. You're fearing
It's
the
like
backlash
you should.
far more than you fear the backlash far more than the consequences of doing nothing.
Hmm. It's like you're like these days we're taught to be made second guessing always before we take an action. We're always second guessing the action, and we're
That's part of what
completely
all the
overthinking things.
well, that's why you see the deconstruction every day because everybody second guesses and overthinks things when sometimes you just gotta pick a path and just go with it and deal with the consequences afterward.
And that's where we go back to the whole schooling thing. Like even if you're not sure on what it is that you want to do in school, it's above all else. If you don't have a plan, start building a plan. Just take back to school, especially
Right.
if you want some advice on what to do in school.
Yep.
It's like you have to figure out what it is. You gotta slowly figure out what it is that you're gonna do, and really follow the path now. It's like even if you're starting your freshman year and you're taking the classes to get the points in to put into to your what's that word, GPA.
Right.
I think you gotta get into the path. The GPA will the points will put you on that path at least.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the points that you earn within the college year, and the way how you excel in your classes, you
Right.
um you can use that to at least shorten the length it's going to take to reach that goal. And of course, Trooper brings up the years that it takes to get your goal. Um,
Yeah. Well, you always got to have a good 5 year plan. Like, where are you going to be in the next 5 years?
hmm
And
definitely.
that's where that's where your education comes into play. Like, what is the trajectory? Are you going to be someone that's an artist? Are you going to be a scientist? Are you going to be an engineer? What are you going to be?
And this is why we need to push for nowadays. We're strong advocates of at least going to a trade school,
Yep.
because because only thing that you're doing really is setting yourself up for failure, or at
Right.
least if you do succeed, which more to power to you if you succeed. Just know that you have to just know that you have to pay off your debt to society.
Oh yes. And
Hey, trooper.
Trooper has just joined us.
Hey, what's going on? Or I should say,
Yeah, we
hello, how's everyone? This is your lovely lady of valor.
Yes, conspicuous by her absence is the our lovely lady of Valor,
Right?
Leia plus
Right.
size.
Oh man. Hey, Leia, if you're
she's
listening on the rewatch, hey, hang in there. I feel you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and
yep,
get well
yep, yep.
soon. We'd love to have you back.
Oh man, nah, dude. It's like for anyone that really knows what's going on behind the scenes, it's been a real pain. Like these last few weeks to kind of keep up with everyday normal,
Be right
but
back.
all
Uh,
right, cool. Don't fall in. So,
Trooper, I guess you'll take it from here since you're just joining us.
oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the one thing I did talk to Wolf about this particular topic, um, was that I didn't want to talk about this particular topic because it was such an unnerving topic for me. So,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure your sentiments are going to be around the same as mine. Now,
Well,
I
for me,
had it
I never
pretty
actually
easy.
went to college, so we discussed that with Wolf earlier. I just went straight into the workforce because I really had no clue what I wanted to do. I just wanted to, get out there and make some money and figure out things.
Well, that's kind of what ended up happening to me in a roundabout way. So, like I was telling Wolf, while it was fantastic at the fact that my parents pretty much left me alone to do what it was that I wanted to do, and I told him about one argument that pretty much kind of set things off. But as far as high school, um, anyone who really knows my story or anyone who knows me, IRL, knows that, I came from homeschooling. And I not only came
Mhm.
from homeschooling, I kind of came from like a hybrid system where at one point I started private school. So Like,
Right.
I did my time with the Catholic nuns,
Like,
so I
what
mean,
were you going to private school for to learn exactly? Like,
well, the honestly the main difference is, especially if you end up doing like a private Catholic school, is that there's like added stuff that you talk about.
mm,
Mostly, stuff pertaining to faith, because I mean that's what you're paying for.
right.
So the thing is, it honestly, in retrospect, offered a more balanced approach, as opposed
Mm,
to what you are actually coming across in schools now in 2021, even versus back then. Because I remember when we finally moved to the armpit of California, um, my mother and my father were already strained in terms of their particular situation. I don't really talk about that too much, but I do in this particular situation. And like I said, college is such a sore spot because it just kind of brings all these things up. So,
mm-hmm.
what more or less what ended up happening is they more or less split up. Uh, mo- Mostly, what ended up happening is who's going to be with who, because
Right.
it's not only me, it's my brother. So it's almost like a tug of war, and it's like you're having to pick sides. But anyway, the only reason I bring this up is because I ended up in public school towards the very end of it. So when I ended up in public school, it was like weird world for me because I was so used to always being challenged, like uh,
Mm-hmm.
with my schoolwork, also
Right.
with like any type of critical thinking. But then again, I got lucky, having
Right.
the people that I did up until like public school came about, and that came about because it was more easier for them to literally spend money on representation as to who's going to end up with what versus you
Buying
know
textbooks or something that would actually teach you something
well,
useful.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
then
we're bringing up the poor resource management and back in the days, and continuing now.
yeah.
As do you think it's any different
Oh, it's
now?
worse now. It's
Oh yeah,
absolutely worse now.
the resource
Well,
management is terrible.
because
Oh yeah.
now, like, as the dollar is being devalued and also the course of work is being devalued more so, um, it's, I'll say, as far as like if you have like working class parents and they've always been 9 to 5, it's like what you'll notice is, okay, so maybe Bill, you know, we'll say Bill the pharmacist. So you'll notice that Bill the pharmacist started at X, amount of dollars, and a few years later after that, Bill is still at the pharmacy, but they're hiring all these new guys, and they're hiring them at a higher wage.
Right.
And mind you, um, while that sounds like wow, well that's screwed up. Well, yeah, because there's inflation to be considered for. you know, however, many dollars an hour before, obviously the dollar has since inflated. So guess what? They kind of have to offer quote unquote more money now to draw you in. So there's that. So
Right.
but suffice it to say, when I got right into when I got right into public school, I didn't realize how public students were just so stupid. And I'll say the word stupid because, and I've always been told, only stupid people use the word stupid. I'm like, well, yeah, unless you were living in bizarro land, you wouldn't understand. So, when I landed, where I did, I didn't realize how, you're supposed to know X by each grade year. So I landed into public school, and I'm literally almost a year or 2 years ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I got bored really fast. Like once I got into public school, I stopped being challenged. So, and when I say stop being challenged, I mean by like my teachers, like, and also the material. It wasn't challenging anymore because they have to cater to the lowest common denominator, and the lowest common denominator is usually not there to learn.
No,
So
they're not.
yeah, so I was bored all the time. So for me, you know, when it came down to scoring and grading, I didn't have a problem anymore. Suddenly, I didn't have a problem anymore. I wasn't competing with other gifted students anymore,
Right.
which kind of opens up another, which opens up another can of worms, because this is all stuff I don't like to talk about, because again, it goes down this deep dark road of having to talk about how it feels like to be a gifted student in a
You're
regular
basically
class.
saying you're miserable because
Oh,
everybody
I
else
was
was.
beyond miserable. I was beyond miserable. So,
For me, it was for me in my experience. Um, when I look back to what people are saying about the whole the huge number of of students held in the classroom, right?
mhm,
Right.
There is no way you can teach at least like 16 to 20 students in a classroom, or at least I think there was like 15 or 17 of us per classroom.
well,
Right.
dude, okay, this is Nevada, so you're looking anywhere between 25 to 30 kids per
Yeah,
teacher. That's
Yikes.
pretty
yeah.
insane.
In my case, yeah, I was where our numbers were probably around that one, like
Yeah.
20 to 15, and it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
majority of the students there were lollygagging, laughing, distracting the teacher mostly. And in the back of my mind, when I looking back at it, it's like, bruh, am I the only one who was trying?
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of my own school because, see, I went to to a special school for kids that have like behavioral or learning disabilities. Like I was
Yep.
there for Asperger's, and a
Yeah.
lot of the kids there would basically goof off, like like Wolf was talking about. So you like we even had like an on-school crisis team for kids that would get out of control and start getting violent, and you had these two big
Right.
guys come in and drag them out. I remember I was even telling one of my friends this story, and he was like, "Wait a minute, you're telling me your school had orderlies?" I was like, well, yeah, something like that.
Oh, that brings back freaking memories too, because
And it just
well,
and
Oh
I
yeah,
think what really I think what was really challenging for me to pay attention to what the teacher was doing was because of the distractions. And you know, when I noticed now, I was like you know, if they were there to learn and just shut up and listen to the teacher lecture,
yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
I I don't think I would have struggled that much, or at least try to play catch up enough to get this class done and get it done with a passing grade. And I wouldn't have to see these assholes again in summer school because
yeah.
because summer school didn't do shit for me either, because again the same assholes were there too.
Really?
Oh yeah. I know the
Yeah,
feeling there.
Like, I mean,
I was
okay,
like,
I got out of high school early, but to kind of wrap my stuff up, kind of along the lines with Brian, because they tried to figure out what my problem was. So I went through all like uh when I went right into public school, um they had, they had all the letters from my instructors and the recommendations and stuff like that, which was all thrown out the freaking window, because that's what public school does. And they decided that they were going to do it their way. So, I did a whole bunch of placement testing, because they couldn't figure out why I was like so not wanting to like what my problem was. My problem was is I just didn't care. So,
mhm.
I mean, my situation is, my parentals are being, a bunch of idiots. But you know what? If you were to know them in person, you like everybody loved my parents. That was also my problems. Everybody loved my parents. Like if you were to meet my dad, you would love my dad. If you were to meet my mom, you would absolutely love my mom. Like she would spoil you, and I would think that
I was
she's
gonna say,
like,
was she hot?
well,
Yeah.
I had that too once. I had that too once where they asked, who if that was my
It's
sister
like,
picking me up. I'm like, no, I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're reading too much into that.
no,
But
what I'm
like,
saying is like the way how you said it is like you would really love my mom. Was like, wait, is she hot?
well, like
Your milk?
everybody, like they're very they were very congenial people. But like to me, I could not stand them. So
Oh.
yeah, so I mean, in I kind of told Wolf one of the arguments, and pretty much it was just you know being more or less chastised, only for the sheer fact that here I am, I'm not having to do any maximum effort to do anything anymore, and it's coming to me super easily because I'm around a whole bunch of mouth breathers. And it was along the lines of me finally saying, "Well, what do I need to do to get you away from me? Do I need to give you money to go away?" So, so
They
yeah,
do
and
say
right after that,
familiarity breeds contempt.
yeah, oh yeah, no, it does, it really does breed contempt. So finally, they pretty much left me to my own vices. It's like, okay, well, there's nothing we can really do at this point. So,
Going back to my experience in high school, you know what's funny
hmm,
is the fact that despite the fact that everybody was a momentary distraction throughout the class, I was the
Yeah.
one who was getting the daily routine program where I had to report to the teacher all the time to tell him or her, am I doing the work or not?
Hmm.
Every single time,
Oh,
and I
you
had
were
to
that guy.
report back to, huh?
You were that guy.
Yep.
Oh wow,
oh,
mm, that's exciting.
Only, and it's funny because I never seen nobody else do this. I was like, wait, am I going about this wrong? Have I done wrong then? Because
Well,
nobody else
yeah,
is doing
I would
this.
tell you,
yeah.
honestly. And here's the thing: when it comes to it's like it's the same thing as I was saying earlier. Like once you have a large amount of kids, mind you, already mal-educated kids in one room, and you have to literally get from point A to point B within under 50 minutes or however
Right.
many minutes you're in class or whatnot. It's like there's no way to literally spend time with each and every student and figure out where they're all at and how they learn. So it's frustrating in the sense of you really don't get to connect with your professors. Well, I'll talk about college in a minute. You don't really get to connect with your teachers in a way that's beneficial to you or expressive. So I mean, you're literally being cheated out of an education. Literally just being in public school. You really do.
Mm.
They're almost indoctrination plans. They really are. So,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
and I think I've even said it before. Like, my grift back in the day for me to, get all these, video games and all these freaking shiny toys that I had was doing other people's homework. So, and it wasn't hard. I mean, it wasn't hard. It's not like I went all out of my way to like,
I
do
think
their
that's
homework.
why.
A lot of
I think
these
that's
freaking
why
a lot of these
you and
freaking
I
kids I
connect the
already
most.
knew. Like, so I mean, I knew they were dumb as a box of rocks, but I mean, hell, if they're willing to pay me to do their freaking like book report or whatever project it was, it's like, okay, well, what do you need?
I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
where you
I
and
know
I
what that is.
connect with
Yeah.
because I kind of wish I had your line of thinking because I did do artwork for somebody and
Hmm.
got paid $3 for it. And I was like damn, back then I should just make that into a small business.
Yeah, right.
Probably.
So again, it's like my parents absolutely had no clue of what I was up to, which is fine with me because that's how I wanted it. It's like I wanted their spat outside of my bedroom. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's bred because of a certain rate of circumstances. But like, look, going into high school, again, I was in the advanced placement classes. Um, it really wasn't too much of a chore either. What they called advanced placement, to be honest, was literally just a bunch of freaking students that were actually paying attention. There was nothing special to it. You weren't any, special snowflakes or anything like that. It's I still tell the story that it was kind of weird having, Harvard come out to my high school to talk about college placement. Now, mind you, didn't even bother with Harvard,
Mhm.
but it was funny that they were trying to grift some of these kids into freaking applying. I'm like, no, thanks. I'm like, you're not for me. Like, whatever it is you're
Mhm.
selling, I don't want it. So, I mean, that was
Mhm.
literally my attitude towards that. But, we can talk about, colleges on the East or West Coast. But, yeah, like, I mean, I think throughout high school, I maybe connected with maybe one or two teachers. And then one particular teacher that I have in mind was my U.S. history teacher, but she was one of the first teachers I actually met. who then went on to teach high school, and I just ended up in the same school that she started teaching in. And then she gave me a lot of leeway. So at one point, I had to drop a few classes because I was getting ready to graduate early.
Hmm.
But at one point, she had to pull me to the side, and she was like, "Look, I know there's a whole bunch of students in there that you don't like." And then well, there were more than a few. I mean, I saw these people day to day, and I couldn't stand them either. But she was like, if I'm gonna have you in here, more or less as a TA, I need you not to instigate. And I'm like, I'm not instigating. It's like, to truth be told, I just can't stand them. The fact that they decide to try to pick, they're trying to pick something with me. I'm trying to more or less stay out of that situation. But
So in
again,
other
when you
words,
have,
wait, you're saying that you didn't make the enemy of them; they made the enemy of you.
well, they made the enemy of me the moment they opened their mouths and asked me stupid questions. But
Well, there you go.
so it's, but again,
So
so
you have chosen
I mean,
death.
it just, that particular situation is what really cascaded me into actually graduating early. So I didn't walk with anyone. Um, and there's a very important thing that we do in literature that we more or less call a rite of passage. And it's in order for someone to progress in terms of human development, you have to go through these rites of passage. Um,
Right.
whether you choose to walk down the aisle or not is your personal choice. Now, of course, people will tell you that it's not; it's your parents' choice. But I chose not to walk with anyone. So for me, high school was just like an afterthought. Um, and just like Brian, I was in this bubble of, I don't really want to do anything. I don't know what I want to do. Um, I'll figure it out when I come to it, because I was always that type of student. I'll figure it out when it gets here.
Hmm.
So that was actually very counterproductive. So I mean, I did end up finally picking up, college, in Nevada per se, but I mean, that was after I relented as far as like maybe a year and a half of trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And in that process, my dad, because now I was living with my dad at the time, he was like, "Look, you need to get a job." He's like, "I appreciate that you're this smart kid who I don't really understand, and I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. I'm not your mother, but at the same time, it's like, look, you got to pick something. You got to do something. Give me something to give your mother, because she's the last person I want to deal with." So, so you can kind of tell. Yeah, you can kind of tell who's.
Who
People
wears the
always
pants in
say
the
that.
family?
Well, everyone always says that I'm more like my mother, but then, in retrospect, I tend to have more of my father's personality in terms of, look, I don't want to deal with these people. Give me, throw me a smoke signal, something. So I was like, fine, whatever. I've been looking for work. Nothing really interests me. I'll just pick up this like job at the casino hucking tickets. You know what I mean? So I did that for a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, that was just to literally, quell him and then try to figure out what I was going to school wise. So, but what it really came down to is, and in retrospect, it's not that it was a bad thing, but the first thing I foresaw about college is that I wasn't looking at it as an opportunity to grow, because to be perfectly honest, it wasn't anything I was interested in at the time. And I did know I wanted to do more literary art, and I did go into that. But prior to that, and this is one of the pitfalls that most students tend to have, is that if you're not focused as to where you should be going, you should at least have a few adults in your life that are pushing you in a certain direction, even though that direction may not be the one you want to go to. You're being pushed in a direction that eventually will affect your trajectory, meaning you'll come to the conclusion of, hey, this is not for me. Let me go ahead and change my major. Yeah, this is better. So, I looked at a lot of colleges, and not, I wasn't so worried about the money. Um, and that's what I hear a lot, from people, that end up, when we discuss college and stuff like that, they talk about debt. And then,
Right.
not only do they talk about that, they talk about I don't have the money up front.
Mhm.
Well, unless your parents have been saving like a huge nest egg for you to go to college, guess what? No one's going to have that. But at the same time, it's like don't limit yourself to your options. You do need to throw your application out there. But here's my thing, and a lot of people don't tend to really hone in on this. It's like colleges need your money more than anything, so
Hmm.
they're
Yep.
going to take you regardless. I mean, they want to drive you into the ground because eventually that means that they're getting guaranteed revenue. So
Yep.
I mean, I was looking at a ton
Welcome
of
to capitalism, bitch.
well, I was looking at a ton of colleges, and what ended up happening with me is not that they were so impractical, is that it became impractical the further out I looked because I was looking as far as Maine. Well, okay, so if you're in California, you do have UCLA, you have USC, you also have uh, US or rather UCSB. So it's like you have University of California, Santa Barbara, it's like so I looked at all those colleges too, like but I didn't my the one thing that was kind of standing in the way for me was that um, California in and of itself is not someplace I wanted to be. Mind you, if we look at Nevada, Nevada only really has two big colleges. Um, and it's very limited. That's the other thing too. You end up being affected by where you end up going to school. So in Nevada, you have University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and you also have University of Nevada, Reno. Those two are not anywhere near close. So you're either looking to go to UNR or you're looking to go to UNLV. That's it. That is
Mhm.
it. You know, as far as colleges go, that is it. And if you're wanting to go into medicine, you're more than likely going to have to go to UNR because they're the only ones with a Western, agreement as far as system of higher education where your credits could transfer to, say, if you wanted to, go to, say, Washington State. So, or if you wanted to go to University of Washington. And I told this to Wolf. I mean, there are a ton of freaking colleges out there that back in the day would have made so much sense to go to. So not only
Hmm.
UW, you also had Pacific Lutheran, and then on the East Coast you had College of the Atlantic, you had Wesleyan, you had Cornell. I mean, these are all colleges I considered, and these are all colleges that were like, really wanting me to go. So, and that's the other thing too. Like, they don't tell you that based on your performance in school, that's going to determine, at least for them in the very beginning, who you are and if they're willing to quote unquote invest in you. Because, um, you know, being accepted into college is not hard. Anyone with a pulse could get a 3.0 or a 3.8 GPA. I always had a consistent 3.8 or 4.0. I never went above that because again, I knew how to game the grade system too. So I also knew, how much effort I had to go ahead and put into my schoolwork to, get my desired outcome. If I was already acing the class, if I was literally the top grade in the class, then that mean I could slack for at least one or two papers. So again, I did that too. That was also my grift. So, um, and in retrospect, I still did that in college. In terms of, I always kept up with my grades and knowing what exactly was my placement in terms of where I was with the rest of the class. And what really
Mhm.
used to kill me is someone like me would always end up being would always being weighed down by these horrible grading systems in terms of, you know professors having to literally grade on a curve to literally make the lowest common denominator pass. That to me is frustrating. That has always
Yeah.
been frustrating because, and that's when I learned, hey, you know what? I need to not I need to not do so well and just kind of let things go because I was almost a closet overachiever at times because I'm a type of person that doesn't really like to fail at anything that I more or less apply myself to. So
Mhm.
if I start to fail, I really get bent out of shape. So I double down and I figure it out and I get through it. But when
I
I was
almost
out
kind of
here,
feel like like they were shaming us for trying to go the distance.
Mm.
Well,
It's like
I never felt
it's like
shame. What I felt
I
was
did.
this like vast contempt for all these other freaking students in terms of, I'm not putting any effort into this. Why aren't you people doing as well as I am? Like, why is it that I'm consistently the one who's being demonized for having a high grade? Like,
Pretty much where I'm
Yeah.
at when it comes to workplace now. At this
hmm,
point,
No,
it's
yeah.
I try my best not to have contempt for my coworkers because it's like there's a wealth of things that you can do around the work come downtime,
hmm.
and all they're doing is just standing around twiddling on their phones, and I'm like, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
the same work ethic that they have will be mirrored by the type of study ethic that they had in school. So, I mean, if they weren't really applying themselves then, they're not going to be applying themselves now.
No, they will not.
I guess
No, it's absolutely true. So,
like I said, I felt like I was feeling ashamed for even trying in the school because it's like I'm being punished for at least attempting to do good in the class,
mhm,
and it's like people are it's like there's judgmental eyes all around you, like even if my work is decent, you know what I'm saying,
right.
Mm.
it's like you know that you can do more at
Right.
times, you know, especially in the private college, they're pushing me to do more. It's like I had this I was in the wrong headspace. Let's just say that at that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like whenever time I was putting in effort now, it's like I felt like people are getting mad at me because now they have to do something now.
Well,
Mm.
again, like I
Like
said, for me, it's kind of it's a little foreign to me because I didn't have that experience. I came at it from the
mm,
other end
yeah,
where it was one of those things where I just thought everything was so contrived. In terms of like, why are these people struggling? I don't understand it. Like,
right.
or or being pulled aside and be like, look, can you help this particular student? Do you want extra credit? Like, no. Okay, you want extra credit. No, no, you want extra credit. Okay, I want extra credit. Can you help this person? Well, why? I was always like with me, it was always pulling teeth out of a chicken's rear. Uh, I mean, unless I liked you, I didn't really want to do like I didn't want to put any effort into it. So I mean, I had that where I was pulled aside and asked, "Hey, do you want to help can you help this particular student?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So it wasn't anyone in particular that I really, had disdain for. Um, their particular situation was different. And that's the other thing too. Social hierarchies in school. The
Oh
person that I
yeah.
was
Oh
asked to
boy.
kind of help was not very high up there on the uh, on the social hierarchy scale. Truth be told, but I ended up befriending them through that experience. I wasn't looking to turn them into a friend, but then again, in retrospect, I would see how I did tend to kind of gravitate towards very underdog type personalities. So, and it happens like there are a lot of freaking students that slip through the class every freaking year, regardless of school level. So, I became friends with them. It cost me like a little bit of like high school social capital, not enough to really do anything, but certain people that were already is in terms of flimsy. Oh, you're hanging out with her. Like, well, not because I want to, but you're hanging out with her. Not because I want to, but you're still hanging out with her. Okay, what about stupid do you not understand? Like, so, but anyway, yeah, no, suffice it to say, like, I had my choice of schools, and when it really came down to it was, do I want to walk around with, $200,000 worth of debt, or do I just want to just at least at least start, you know, down this trip to college, and then kind of figure out if it's going to be a yay or nay, and that's what I did. And I came across these teachers that what's really funny is I actually came across at least one professor who had taught at the high school level and who knew me. So, um, and not a lot of people know that I did take some performing arts electives, because that's what I really kind of gravitated to at that time in terms of expression. So, um, I still have my cello. I actually, my cello probably got like such a such a such a bad rep, because like I started with cello as early as seventh grade, and then on and up, I would pick it up and put it down, pick it up and put it down. So I never really honed in on my cello. Had I, that would have landed me in a particularly different outcome in terms of college, in
Hmm.
terms of
Hmm.
performing arts. But um, I ended up picking up vocal performance in high school just because I thought, okay, well, this is different. It's like it's hopefully this will get a few people off my back, so they'll leave me alone for at least 1 or 2 semesters. And then I just kind of fell in with that crowd. So it was weird because I had a foot in two different social hierarchies. So while I pretty much was in that small group of popular kids, and the quote unquote the quote the what is it, oh gosh, like you know that whole rule of the school crowd. I was in that crowd, but at the same time I had a foot in the performing arts crowd. So I was known among some of the band and vocal geeks. So it was weird for a while there. It was kind of fun because not only was I hanging around some of the cheerleaders and some of the football
Hmm.
players because of student council. I was also having to split my time between that and performing arts, and it got to the point where they're like, okay, well, you got to make a choice, because what's happening is you're missing out on too many student council events, for the sake of whatever concert's going on. So I ended up picking performing arts at the very end, but this is like towards my you know end of being there, because I mean I was only a senior for maybe half of a semester by the time I got out of there. I mean, I could have dragged it out. Actually, I could have left even a year earlier, but it was more of the, hey, you know what? I'm actually starting to kind of like this performing arts stuff. It's distracting me from having to feel so isolated, because I mean, again, you know, once I left the homeschooling and the private schooling, and went to public school. Like I told you earlier, it was like stranger in a strange land. Like I did not really fit in terms of. Well, I also didn't realize that academically I wasn't being challenged. I knew it, but I didn't realize that that's really what was driving me to be so apathetic about a lot of things that were going on. So, and you know, when I started getting all these acceptance letters, and I finally was like, look, I can do this, in terms of literary arts. I can do this wherever. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the East Coast. It doesn't have to be on the West Coast. I really do kind of want to get away from home, but at the same time, it's that the moment, the moment I move in, it puts you in a pigeonhole that a lot of students get into. It's like, okay, so if you're only making X, because when you start out, you're not making squat, and unless you have parents that are willing to freaking, again, like I said, have money set aside specifically for that. Any money that was specifically set aside for me was literally wasted on representation, and I'll leave it at that. So
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's two people that, again, we're talking about two people that absolutely hate each other, but for whatever reason they end up in a relationship that is very caustic. To me, I'm like, why even bother? Why don't you people just separate? What is the big problem? Why do you need to have it formalized on paper? Oh, yeah, that's right. You want to gallivant like you're a bunch of teenagers and pretend you guys are like n- not having any real responsibility. So for me, it was okay. Do I want to go to Maine and have to deal with the relocation costs, the initial admission costs? Do I want to also deal with I have to have some form of work when I get there? I only have X amount of money right now. If I want to maximize my money, and that's what it really came down to. If I want to maximize my money, it means that I should do it here in Nevada. This gives me more money to work with, and at the same time, if I want a little cushion for the first 2 years or whatnot, I have a cushion. I don't really have to do a whole lot of everything, and that's what I essentially did. Most students don't have that luxury of having X amount of money. Like most students, what I came across was that they couldn't do what they wanted to do, and so they just went right to work. I went to work because there were too many options. Um, and more importantly, there is such a thing as having too many options or being saturated with too many options that you end up just kind of in this like paralyzed moment that you don't know what you want to do. In retrospect, uh, I don't think not relocating to Maine or not relocating to Washington was too much of a thing. I mean, look at Maine and look at Washington now, because I mean, I had already, I had subsequently already been to Seattle. So I was really looking at Pacific Lutheran, and I was also looking at College of the Atlantic. College of the Atlantic was a more liberal arts college, smaller classes, a lot more expensive. But what a lot of students don't tend to realize, like, look, if you want to get around the out of state costs, move there, do your do your residency in that state for however long that their policy says you have to be a resident of that state. In the meantime, while you're there, save up your money and then start. I was more fixated on just getting this out of the way. So, I jumped into it, jumped into UNLV. Um, and, there's this website that a lot of people use in town. I don't know if anyone else has used it. It's ratemyprofessor.com. I use that. That helped a lot with selecting my professors. I did have some very good, I did have some very good relationships with some professors, especially my criminal justice professor. I
Mm,
really loved her. I really loved her, and her husband was one of the three-letter agents that worked on the Oklahoma City bombing. So I got to actually
right,
see a lot of the pictures that were taken on site
right.
that aren't published pictures. They just happen to still have those pictures because
Mm-hmm.
more or less it was not admitted as evidence because of course it was just taking pictures of the overall damage or whatnot. But at the same time, it's like one of these things where you don't there's only so many things that
Mm,
happen throughout your life. If you happen, and this sounds morbid, to have the opportunity to be involved in a terrorist attack, you're going to take pictures, and subsequently you're going to hold on to those pictures because that becomes a very important part of your particular history. So,
mm-hmm.
so a lot of the forensic photos that were not used, ended up in his personal collection. So I got to see a lot of that. I also got to see photos behind the uh, World Trade Center uh, barricade, uh,
Uh,
because what a lot of people don't think about when it comes to 9/11 and stuff like that is everything was pretty much barricaded off. Uh, they brought out the National Guard on top of on top of military. They pretty much kind of like corded everything off. So I got to see some pretty morbid photos. I got to see what happens to a body when it actually makes the impact with the ground. So me, I was excited
only
by
heard about it.
that. You're missing a lot. You're missing a lot, but suffice it to
Probably a good
say,
thing.
uh, well, I would say you're not missing out on anything, but it's such interesting stuff. Like
Hmm.
you talked about pink mist in a stream, like jumping from that
Did I?
height and making contact with the ground. The human body at that speed ends up being like a water balloon.
Yeah,
So
I was
so
told
Mhm.
that.
so I got to see people literally blow out like lower halves of their bodies because
Oof.
again, I was being drawn more towards criminal justice at this point. But I only took those criminal justice courses as electives, because I wanted to do them. It's not that at one point that's kind of where I was gravitating to, and that's how I kind of ended up where I was, and that's how I kind of ended up in dispatching, and that's all. That's that's a story for another time. But uh, it was very interesting seeing the actual building literally being reduced to powder. So
Yep.
a lot of people say, oh, terrorist attacks, blah 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 blah. I'm like, the way that building was built, something like what we were sold as the reason, once you start digging, doesn't really add up. But and I'll leave that at that. But yeah, as far as college, the first pitfall is uh,
Mhm.
kids in that particular circumstance don't know how to look for money. There's tons of freaking scholarships and grants. They just don't know where to look.
Hmm.
Uh, and that literally involves having to talk to, well, if you're smart, you end up going to either your chamber of commerce, or you go down to your city offices and you figure out what organizations put up money for college students every year. Because I mean, they get big tax write-offs by doing that. So it almost becomes like a money hunting situation. If you know where to look, you'll always find it. Some of this money you don't even have to pay back. But what I saw a lot of students do, and I was actually very guilty of doing it up to about maybe, I want to say about $40,000 worth, is you start putting yourself through school on credit cards. That's what I saw a
Mhm.
lot of students do. It's like they try to kind of spend their way through it, and it's like I knew this one chick who was going into nursing, uh, and she had actually relocated out here from Minnesota, and they made her take a lot of her classes over. She was pissed, and it happens. It happens. It's like that's why you have to pick a decent college, especially if you're going to go into medicine. Say if you want to become a practicing nurse, which literally means that you're working under a physician's license. So you're basically assessing patients for that particular physician. So you're able to conduct the patient assessment. You pretty much create a plan of treatment, and you go ahead and you amend, the reports, your comments, and then from there you're also able to prescribe medicine under that physician's license. So that's what she was actually going to school for. But when she got out here, UNLV is like, nope, you got to redo all your classes.
Hmm.
Ow, that hurts.
Yeah, yeah, it does. So she sat there and she kind of fought. She kind of fought with the school for a while, and they took a few of her classes, but she still had to do well over a year or so over. And that was my
That's
biggest
crazy.
that was my biggest concern. Well, I also had another friend who had relocated here from Seattle, and she was going to UW, which is where I kind of wanted to go. And I well, she was pretty, but like she got out here and she was supposed to be on. I forgot what she told me she was on. It was like some form of. Either way, it was like she was basically told that she had to retake a whole bunch of her classes, even though prior to transferring over, they had told her that they were going to accept it. She had it on paper, and then the UNLV was like, "Oh well, you know what? That's since changed. Sorry, we can't hold ourselves to our own standard." So I
Mhm.
pretty much had to, you know, she didn't want to ask me for money, but she, it's like, what do you do? It's like when you're in that position, it's like you've kind of exhausted all your avenues, and you don't want to tell your wealthy parents you're struggling, your parents in Korea, that you're struggling, because all they're going to say is, uh-huh, we told you, and you should have gone to dental school and would have paid for it. Which subsequently she ended up actually being admitted to the University of New York Dental School, which she ended up turning down because, again, the cost was just going to be too much. Like, she was looking at an $80,000 cost, but her parents would have paid for it because her dad is like this big business guy in South Korea. But that's only if she was going to go into dental school, and her brother was already an orthodontist. So, but
Play catch
you
up.
know, but I was like, yeah, you know what? I've got X amount. It's like I have no problem loaning you the money. Like, I know you're going to pay me back. Subsequently, she did. So, but yeah. So it's crazy. A lot of people, you know, tend to think of college as this big experience as opposed to thinking about the dollar figure. So, I mean, they get themselves into these debt traps. And so you get these freaking students that are suddenly all pro potato. Oh yeah, loan forgiveness. Yeah, because you're a freaking dollar sign. Like, literally, you're a walking debt trap. That's why you want loan forgiveness. So,
Pretty much.
but I'll let you read that comment. I gotta blow my nose.
The brilliant star that shines through the night, the couch leg that stubs your toe. Rise, a man stands before you. Rizer man power. Rizer man power. Rise, our man stands before you.
Yep.
But yeah,
Hey,
Good to
Neil
see you.
Star.
Good to see you, Neostar.
and you.
I wonder if a Final Fantasy fan wants to join the conversation.
Mm,
If
yeah,
he
if he wants to,
wants,
why not?
I mean, if he wants, he would. I don't see why we shouldn't.
Hmm.
But
Message me if you want to, Final Fantasy fan.
so
The only
what was
pal
your
supposed to
what was your
join us.
college experience? I mean, you kind of know some of mine. I haven't gone into too much
I spoke
detail.
about it earlier. I was kind of a slacker with ambition.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
I really didn't know what to do in college that much aside from going to school and just do my
Just being
studies.
there.
Yeah,
Just being there to
basically,
take
like
exams.
I
Yeah.
originally was enamored by the idea of going there to pursue an art degree.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But didn't know what really didn't really have a say a guiding path to that goal. I didn't know that art would have really translated to like what job would translate for my art skills.
Well, it's different because we're in 2021. I mean, if we're talking about early 2000s and even the 90s,
Hmm.
you know, you know, graphic arts would have been what would have subsequently happened,
Yeah.
or some form of advertising. I mean, now I don't know, it's different now, and I say it's different now because the technology is more updated. So
Yeah.
you can do more with the technology now, which subsequently leads to a different subset of jobs. Like, there was this big digital boom.
Unfortunately, the community. I didn't say this in the beginning, but unfortunately, in the community college I went to was more geared towards the medical.
Hmm.
So like if like majority of those that were going there were mostly there to be nurses. Nothing
Hmm.
else. Yeah, like you can kind of tell the atmosphere. No,
That
I'm
was
not gonna say
probably a
another.
different atmosphere altogether because I remember I had to do an anatomy class. I never even got to how I ended up being an EMT, but um, no,
Yeah.
one of my anatomy classes was in the nursing building, and that building had a completely different tone. Like, everyone was just, I don't know, it felt different. And it's probably
You,
because there were a lot of like semi-hot chicks running around in freaking scrubs, but whatever.
yep.
So,
Yep. You get no shorts at my place. So that's how I knew that was that the college was mostly there for just to turn you to either a nurse of some kind, like
well,
either a
I
hospital
didn't,
nurse or
I
or
or the other
which,
specialty, right? Well,
yeah,
and
nursing home.
it's funny that you bring that up because, I mean, that's kind of what happens out here. Um, and this was stuff that I wasn't really paying attention to. Again, I was so cavalier and so flippant about a lot of stuff. This is how I kind of fell into the I shouldn't have gone to UNLV, uh, like
Hmm.
uh, like uh, like a train, if you will. Uh, okay, one thing a lot of people don't realize is how much influence these casinos have over literally the entire state. So there's an entire building, if you will. There's an entire department, in UNLV that's literally focused on hotel administration. Okay, that's not the real world,
Hmm.
but it is in Las Vegas. So I mean, if you really want to feel like you're quote unquote someone with a degree that actually knows something, which of course going for hotel administration is crap. That's not going to help. Well, let me put it in this context. Where is having a hotel administration degree going to help you in other than hotel management or hospitality? That's it.
Right.
It's
Yep.
yeah, it's not going to get you. It's not going to get you into a firefighter or law enforcement position. Like, I mean, you're going to show up with a hotel degree. They're going to be like, okay, so you know how to check people in. Like,
Hmm.
so, so
Or woman studies
UNLV,
degree.
UNLV had that problem in terms of if you're going to UNLV, you're almost setting yourself up to fail because either you're going there to be a nurse, because that was the other thing too. Um, UNLV is all about cranking out nurses, and or uh, freaking hotel administrators, front desk managers. I'm like, wow. But yeah, yeah. So like, if you wanted to do anything further in medicine, you were gonna have to go to UNR, and UNR had that agreement with the Western state colleges that some of their credits would transfer. Like, if you were going to go to medical school, like I had this conversation with my counselor, and she's like, you can do it, but are you willing to commit about 12 years worth of school to this? And honestly, I told myself, if I do 12 years, and this is why
Hmm.
I kind of talked myself out of going into becoming a physician. If I go into this, it's 12 years. By the time I come out,
Yep.
I'm still gonna be a freaking teenager with a scalpel. Like I would not have experienced anything. I would be frustrated. It would literally quote unquote be about the college experience. Um, a lot of people don't get to have that. I had the opportunity to have that, but I turned it down. Like, that tends to be a theme in my life, that I tend to kind of turn down opportunities in terms of I can either go ahead and have this whole like life outlined for me for at least a good decade, or I can choose to fly, go, be free, butterfly in the wind, leaf in the wind. Let me tell you this: while Hollywood romanticizes the leaf in the wind narrative, just do the 10 years of school and be done and over with it. Um, I don't regret not doing it. I regret that I didn't actually get to experience that particular college before 2021 came around and before stuff at Evergreen went down,
Hmm.
because I probably would have had a lot more fun. Now, mind you, when we talk about Seattle, in King County, it's one county that's just devoutly liberal. The rest of Washington State is pretty conservative. Um, but yeah, like, you go to UNLV to either become a hotel manager or become a nurse. There is a 2-year nursing school out here now called Toro University. So again, the problem has just been compounded. Like, what are your options in Las Vegas? If you go to college in Las Vegas, you're either, now mind you, oh well, we have all these degrees. Yeah, but my whole thing with these degrees is they're all generic. They're not specialized. If you want to do something specialized, you have to leave the state. You can't necessarily become a physician in Nevada. It's impractical to do so, because then you start looking at, well, you can do it, but this is what I'm getting at. Um, you can do it, but your education is going to be sorely, sorely cheated. So you have to start weighing your options. Like, okay, which are some of the best colleges to go for medicine? And guess what? It's nowhere is Las Vegas, Nevada on that list. For nursing, yeah, maybe towards the bottom of that list, you'll see it. But yeah, like say you want to become a surgeon, guess what? You're gonna have to pick up your butt and park yourself in Washington State because uh, Washington still had some of the best medical schools, with California being a close second, in my personal opinion. Um, as far as criminal justice, again, you're gonna have to leave. You know, you're gonna have to leave Las Vegas, um, which means you can either go to
Right.
New York State University, or you could go to Columbia. Again, if you're going into law, you're gonna have to leave the freaking state. And that was all that kind of always kind of came up in terms of, if I want to do something, I have to leave the state. My problem was is I was too comfortable. Why? Because once I took a casino job out here, I fell into the trap that a lot of people do. When you take your first casino job or whatnot, is that casinos will pay you fairly well, like ridiculously well, for doing absolutely nothing. But that's because they want you to stay there. They're not
Yep.
they're they're not looking for your best interest. They're looking for their best interest, and it's easier to pay someone 18-26 an hour to check people in, while you're shorting yourself out on your career because it's good money up front. And that was my problem too. I fell into that trap of the good money up front trap, because it's nice having to do minimal effort for hourly. But I mean, do you need a college? This is something you and I talked about in private. Do you need college to actually have a good life in 2021? No.
No.
Probably in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, I would have said yes, you could still do it.
Yep.
You'll have a lot of fun, totally worth it. If you're wanting to go into medicine, that would be the best time to do it. Look at how the medical system is now being affected. I mean, we're talking about race-based medicine now. If you saw any, well, no, 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 I'm being
No,
serious.
no, no,
Like,
no, no, no.
like, like if
I'm laughing because I seen it and I believe you.
Yeah, yeah. Like there were a few articles that came out, and I want to say Boston University School of Medicine was one of them. I'd have to look, but
Race-based
some of these,
medical treatment.
yeah, some of these hospitals, and we're going down that route, but you hear it more so now that, like, minorities are going to more, well, the thought line process is because there's such a disparate um, there's such a disparate gap, in terms of healthcare between minorities and whites, that quote unquote it almost makes sense to go ahead and triage and process minorities first. Again, it's more anti-white rhetoric. So I found that really disturbing, because now you almost have these physicians that now are starting to have this line of thinking. It's like, oh, well, you have white privilege. You can wait even though you're bleeding on the floor. Let me go ahead and help Mr. and Mrs. Wang over here that have like a hangnail before I get to your bleeding limb. So it's getting weird. It's getting very weird.
It is.
Oh yeah.
So
And who's to say? And who's to say not? Who's to say that if they're with this talk of race-based medical treatment, who's to say they won't go back to experimenting on blacks again? Which, I mean, granted, they still
well, that's
are.
already happening now with Kuf.
Yeah, yeah.
The goof.
But like I'm talking about long-term other experimentations.
Hmm.
Maybe the Tuskegee experiments all over
Well, I
again.
didn't even get to this part. So since I live in the
I mean,
armpit
you
of
already
hell,
got the. What I'm saying is, you already got the women already just so fixated on being nurses and not being, other forms of entrepreneurs. The ghetto girls are usually the ones that end up becoming nurses, and even then they're still like they still bring their unprofessional behavior to the
yeah, they bring it to the
workplace.
workplace. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Um,
They end up becoming baby moms, but we should not judge them for being a single mother because they work as a nurse. I'm like,
but again, this is the
wow,
problem.
such a
This is
great
the problem.
accomplishment there.
This is the problem when you put women in the workplace. It just is. Like, and I've said this before. I'm of the belief they have no place in the workplace. They don't. Um, And that's not to say, oh, I want to throw you back in the kitchen. Look, like I said it on MeWe last night, like that ship has sailed. As much as I want women freaking shoved back in the kitchen, it's not gonna happen. Like
Yeah.
historically, any time that we do any type of movement as a social group, as Americans, we never backpedal. We only go further into
Yeah,
whatever
Yep.
whatever
we
thing,
just it's like we
except
try
abortion.
to at
Except abortion.
least.
For whatever reason, conservatives have the freaking they have the corner on abortion, on quote pro life 1,000%. But when it comes to anything else, as far as education standards, medical standards, all that stuff, it all goes to crap. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as freaking like, and I made the comment last night. Look, I'm not saying you need to be in the kitchen cooking. Look, there's nothing that says that you can't be. You know, this is my line of thinking. Especially if you're my wench. Like, you know, you should be out there, doing some recreational activities to stay healthy, stay fit. Um, I'm not saying you can't go to school. You need to be able to do that because I'm going to expect that you're going to homeschool our kids while I'm out there, breaking my back to make sure you don't want for anything. Um, at the same time, I'm also asking, like I said, you know, school, fine. You want to go to school, that's fine. Um, but know that your place is not in the workplace. It's just not. You can't change biology. Biology made you who you are. So, um, and you see a lot of that in 2021, where we're inherently trying to change biology. Oh yeah, men can become pregnant. I'm
Oh
like,
goodness, and they can
I'm like,
breastfeed,
yeah, I'm
or
like,
oh, I'm sorry,
Boys can
chest
become
feed.
girls.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you hear all these farcical arguments, and it's all meant to
I saw
deteriorate.
that
It's
video
it's
too.
all
I
it's
was like,
it's
oh my
all
god,
it's all
this is
meant to
so
deteriorate
stupid.
community there, through deteriorating family. So every kid needs a mother and father. I know that 100%
Hello,
because I went
hello,
through that
Hey,
whole
Final Fantasy
father
fan,
hello.
what's
acting
up?
like two
I am
teenagers.
your beloved
Hey,
Count
what's up, man?
Olaf.
But yeah,
Eh,
the like, it's like, and I even said giving the women the right to vote was dodgy. So I freely admit it. I made that comment. I told Leia and I told Aloys in the MeWe thread, I'm going to keep the misogyny to an 8. I'm not going to bring it to a 10.
They
are we
haven't
going?
answered yet, so
Are we
But
going to hear
here's my
repeal
thing.
the
My
19th
my argument
sometime?
is a sound argument. It's not like I'm saying women are idiots. What I
Well,
am
you kind
saying,
of are. I'm just kidding
well,
with
what I
you.
am saying is, don't judge women by the one or two smart ones out there that want to talk about human development and want to talk about these existential topics. Realize that most women aren't like that. Most women are out there to get their SLUT degree, while they're doing the whole partying and clubbing and all this stuff. And it's like, the moment that we made sex a casual thing, that deteriorated the family even further,
Oh,
hmm
because you're not. And this is why we're having declining birth rates. It's not like men and women are getting married young and having children anymore. Now, we're pushing the propaganda of, oh, you can have it all. You don't need to have kids. As a woman, you can have everything. You don't need to be a stay-at-home mom. So
he
basically,
was going to give me everything.
yeah, yeah. So we're basically telling women to go against their own biological nature, to go against their own biological instincts, and more or less be men in the workplace. That's all we're doing, is we're turning women into men. So
Unfulfilled man too.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And my whole thing is this: like, if you're a woman, or again, if you're my wench, like, I don't want you working. I want you exploring what you want to explore, because that's going to translate to how you raise my kids. That's going to translate to how much attention you give them and how much attention you give our family. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, like,
And that's
I'm
exactly
not
why I
saying that
just
you
put in
can't
that
have a
JR
job.
Tolkien quote in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't have a job. If you have a job, you can do remote work. But my whole thing is this: it's like I don't want some stranger raising my kids. So
Hmm.
because I came from that, like I came from having friggin' nannies. Like I told you before, you end up picking up bad habits from nannies.
I'm sure
So
Leia will agree with you there about the whole raising with a stranger.
yeah,
Yeah, because
so
as a parent, it's your job to take care of your kid, not
yeah,
someone else's or something else.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. In public school is like the
But yet they just do gaslighting onto something else that had nothing to do with it,
yeah.
just so they
Years
won't even
worth
get
of
into trouble.
gaslighting.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Years worth of gaslighting has led us to this, to the
Yeah,
point.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, and
People should have just told them to go screw themselves.
like I come off as misogynist, but like I said, it's like I'd have to pull up that message to see what I exactly said. But more or less, what I'm getting at is like we're putting these women in the workplace, and now they're having to pseudo compete with other women because that's how women are. That's how women are. Women aren't naturally competitive as much as socially accepting of their peers. Like as men, we're competitive. So I mean, if we're in the same workplace, yeah, we're competitive. You know, women get uncomfortable having to be aggressive like men, but we basically push them to be. So I mean, this is where you get all that fourth wave feminism. I mean, it started back in second wave. Yeah, it's
Like,
like first wave feminism, you're thinking, okay, cool. So she wants a little bit more liberty and she doesn't quote unquote want to be treated like a slave. I'm like, first and foremost, you're not black. So throw the slave argument out the window. It's like it doesn't I'm like that doesn't work with me. It's like you're not my pleasure servant by any means. Like at any point have I made you feel like like a pleasure servant? No, I don't. I mean, am I satisfied? Absolutely. Are you satisfied? Absolutely. Like it's one of those things, and it's really funny. It's really funny because every girlfriend I had a situation with, it's like you know they've had their quote unquote best life with me, but yet they go chasing something that inherently pop culture brainwashes them into doing, and they end up with someone who's the complete opposite. Then they end up in a ditch. Then they call me to dig them out, and I dig them out once, and that's it. And I'm like, you know what?
Hmm.
After I do this for you, I don't owe you any other favors. I'm doing this out of respect for the relationship you and I had. But if you're willing to freaking put it on the line for this, and I have to freaking buy you a ticket so you can get out of the United Arab Emirates, because your quote unquote husband dumped you for some other chick and is now in Australia and you're pretty much stuck where you are, then I don't want to hear from you again. I get you out of this ditch. I want you out of my life. It's one of these things. You do this, you and I will no longer have the type of rapport that you and I had, and they're willing to do it. That's what's crazy about these women. It's like I tend to call them, now I just call them German shepherds. But yeah, it's like you know the uh the the lack of decent women is very telling in 2021.
hmm
Hmm.
This is
Very
why I'm
telling.
mostly better off making friends than having a lover.
Well,
Same here.
you hear about incels, and it's like as a group, as Americans, we're creating our own incel groups.
Yep.
So we are,
I
because
believe you, but I'm
like
like,
I mean we're
I'm still
selling we're,
shaking my
we're
head
selling
at
stuff
that.
like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. That's what we're selling. We're selling that as a woman, you should be sexualized and you should have multiple partners and you
And
should be
nobody
quote
should not
unquote.
be judging you for being
Yeah, yeah,
sexual.
yeah, and you can quote unquote be a bad bitch and get yours, while you're getting yours, and it's like, okay, we're basically indoctrinating you into being a man. It's like, so it's like you might as well just go get you
They
might as
always
well
point
just
the
go.
finger at the man. You know
Dude,
what I'm
dude, you
saying?
might as well just go get another dude because that's literally what they're doing. It's like, it's like, but
Like at this
I
point, why
I I
bother
hy- I
dating
hy- I,
anybody?
hy- I hyperbolize when it comes to go get another dude, but it literally is. You might as well. I mean, come on, get real. It's like we're turning them into dudes. It's like And what are we doing with men? We're telling them that they're toxic and they can't be masculine, and that we need them to be simps,
We're telling them
and
they
that
need to be women as well.
yeah, yeah. So it's happening with dudes as well. Like, I mean, I just
Damn
happen to be who
shame.
I am because of all the circumstances that I went through. It wasn't because I was just like, oh, I've never been like the type of person who was not nice. I've always been a very nice person. I mean, if you know me in real life, I mean, this is who I am in real life too. It's like, but I mean, I'm a little less rough with people
Hey,
that I do
Grumpy.
know. But I know we got off the reservation when we started talking about women, but it's true. So, but um, going back to the whole UNLV and hotel administration, it's like what you do end up seeing is a lot of freaking women going for a hotel administration degree. And like I told you, women are terrible leaders. They just are. They rule by consensus. So, um, in terms of like a mixed
Could have
gender,
sworn they made a movie out of that.
right? Yeah. Well, the research is out there, and I told you, as far as women and men in the workplace, women do better when they have a male manager or supervisor. And if you do have a group of men, they tend to do well with a female supervisor, and that's only because, like I said, females lead by consensus. They don't make up their own mind. So, it female leaders, while they can be more egalitarian, it can also be destructive for the workplace. If the majority of your peer group that you manage are other women, because then you get into this female social hierarchy, and then you get all the passive aggressive behavior, and then you start getting all the work tension and all that crap. So, it's like I've never really met guys that were passive aggressive, and I've met maybe one or two, but I mean, those are dudes that were ill raised. So of course they're going to do that. I mean, they had no
The
father
soy
figure.
boys, right?
Well, they had no father figure, so they were raised by a freaking woman. So of course they're going to resort to female tactics because that's what they
Hmm.
know. That's all they know. They don't know how to be a dude up front. They don't know how to come to you and be up front and be like, hey, you know what? I don't like you. Okay, I don't like you either. At least we agree on that. That kind of thing. And basically say, hey, the day that you came at me like this is the day that you and I started, not talking because you were being an asshole that day. And maybe you did have a bad day, but at least you could have been like, hey, you know what? This is going on with me. Don't take what's coming out of my mouth and my tone personally right now because I'm in a shit mood. But you can't seem to have those type of conversations anymore because again, with all the propaganda that's
Toxic
out there,
masculinity.
dudes tend to react more like females now. So it's like, so you get all this
More
backbiting
abrasive
and
than,
stuff like
than
that.
they usually are,
Yeah,
than they need to be.
yeah.
Men used to be reasonable. They
Hmm.
used
Yep.
to they used to reason with each other. Now they open fist fight each other too, and for the pettiest of reasons.
Yeah,
But that's only because the absence of the father
Yep.
or the lack of father figures.
yeah.
And the fathers have been demonized.
Oh well, yeah. Because I mean, you can't be a working class father anymore. That's too toxic. You can
Yeah.
be a stay at home dad. You can be a stay at home dad. And raise your babies together. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, because apparently the only father figure it sounds like they ever known is just the evil father. Think Huey
Yeah.
Emmerich from Metal Gear Peace Walker and Metal Gear 5.
well,
Because
yeah. And okay, now that you bring that up, that's where these okay, and now we start going into pop culture, but now you start seeing why some of these characters become important to people, like Luke Skywalker, Superman, Batman. Anyone that really gravitates to superheroes is for various reasons. Obviously, some of them, being because they're seen as role models or they're seen as quote aspirational heroes. We talk about this a lot. So,
Hmm.
Yep.
and that's what it
Or
really comes down to.
inspirational.
If you don't have an aspirational hero in your home, if your dad is not your aspirational hero, then you're gonna find it somewhere else.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
It's like again, it's to quote Denzel. You don't find if you don't have the father in the home, you find the father somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with feminism. It's like, we've married off our women to big daddy government. So, I mean, they look to big daddy government for everything now.
They
from
don't
abortion
move unless the
from
government move.
abortion to handouts. So,
They
Now
really
that's
don't move
it's
unless
more
the
so
government
like
move.
the idea of biasness to where now, yeah, everyone is just now completely biased with a lot of things now, where they just like hear one information about something and yet completely disregard anything else, despite for it being another thing. It literally split. It yeah, it literally spreads everywhere like a plague.
Yep.
oh well, yeah, because it's all
It's
copy
it's
paste.
it's it's spread like that because it goes to the young girls first,
Hmm.
and then
Yep.
those young girls grow up, and
And
then they
become mean girls.
hang on, Brian.
Hmm.
So it starts with the young girls, right? They
Right.
get older. These same young girls go and give that to the young impressionable girls behind them.
Right.
That's how it's able to spread like that because once it spreads to that first generation, it goes back to that second generation, which is a generational thing.
Yep.
And it you can take it out of the previous generation, but you can't take it out of the new generation. Which
Hmm.
it's once it's set there, it's there. It takes a long time for it to go away, and even then, you'll still get like crumbs of it still left, and somebody will restart it again because they thought they get so quote unquote inspired by it, and they bring it back to life. Like, if anything, if there was one thing that feminism should have stopped, that was the right to vote. It's like once you were given that, like that was it. That was it. You're already in the workplace. You already been given the right to vote. What else do you need now? That's why like movements like that, they don't know how to win,
Nope.
or at least they don't know what a victory is.
Nope.
Civil rights movement should have ended where we were given the right to vote.
Yep.
Blacks, any minority was given the right to vote. We didn't need no affirmative action. We had the right. We had the right to vote in for our candidacies, or vote in for the chance to set up our own institutions, which we did. And then in the ACP, where are they? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I know what you're
Like
saying.
whenever,
I know what you're saying.
yeah, like when like there was one. Okay, I always say I always want Killmonger to shut up, but there was one line that he said that stood out to me when he brought up the blacks leading the revolution. They were armed, right? And he
Hmm.
asked where was Wakanda. I'm like you have a point there because I asked that same question towards the NAACP because
Right.
you had many opportunities to supply these young black boys with father figures, to supply them with the resources for them to make their own businesses, to start their own families, to continue to lead the new generation. But where are you? We don't have. You telling someone we don't have enough black lawyers, we don't have enough black doctors. I'm sorry, I've seen enough black doctors in my lifetime to know that what you're saying is dumb.
Well,
I've
yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah. Because
I've seen
there's,
train conductors. I've seen bus drivers that are black.
yeah.
But you know what? I hear from you guys all the damn time. You devalue these train conductors and these bus drivers and these taxi drivers. You even devalue the ones that work at a barber shop.
Oh well,
I hear
yeah.
a
I
lot.
mean,
I hear a
go
lot
ahead.
of that so many times, and suddenly when they're once the whole BLM things get started, now you won't recognize them. You get times that the slogans, these advertisements, you get
Mm.
you get these kind you get these kind of things popping up. I'm like, oh, so now you want to recognize them. Never
Oh
once
well,
did you
yeah,
ever
yeah, yeah.
support.
Because they're
Never once,
political tools.
yeah, and then those same people that run those businesses are now dead and gone. Ain't said nothing about them.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, we start talking about that, then we have to start talking about ownership and responsibility, or rather, the lack of
Mm-hmm.
accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah, and you're not going to get that out of these people. You're just not. I mean,
Nope. Because they want to still be seen as a savior. They
Well, not even that. To do
still
that,
want to be seen as the hero. You're not born a hero. You're made.
well, it breaks down the narrative that Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. When didn't they matter? Like
That's what I was
it's
saying
like
earlier. I was like, yes, they do matter. And look, I was willing to join up with them too, mind
I
you. I
need
was
I
al-
need
I
two
was almost I was almost caught up in that bullshit, right?
I need two chicks that got caught up in it, and I actually stopped talking to one because she got caught up in it. Now,
To the
mind you,
point where
she's a German Shepherd because she was hot back in the day, and then she got with this freaking thug and freaking popped one out because she loved him. Like, you can do all you want with your coochie. No one's telling you. No. I can't tell you different because you're not my woman, or I would have had your legs closed. But she gets with this freaking felon. All right, she pops one out. Guess what? He ends up in jail anyway, so he's gone. He's
hmm
gone out of his freaking child's life.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this freaking single mom who's having to quote unquote resort to whatever she got to do, quote unquote,
Yep.
to get hers. So now she's with freaking government handouts, doing all sorts of freaking 9 to 5 work to make sure her kid eats. Like, where's the man in all this? Well, he's in jail. It's like and
It's just
why is he in jail?
no matter
It's
which
like,
battles they're in, like this, like Wolf 10, like you said, the BLM
yeah,
movement, no matter what, no one wins. Period.
Nope.
yeah, no one
see
in that movement, no, no. So and it goes back to the breakup of the black family.
see
Like,
when I hear
they
the
don't
Black
bother
Lives
with it.
Matter, that's the thing. When I heard about the Black Lives Matter movement, I was like, okay, so are we gonna just start, getting together our young boys to become men, or we're gonna round up the baby days to really pressure them to take care of responsibility? Are we really gonna push into more blacks working on building businesses to open the doors for more blacks? None of that.
Yeah,
Just going out and shouting at the cops, shouting at white folk. I was
yeah.
like, you know
Burning
You
what?
down
need to
black
do better.
businesses.
You need to do better.
I'm like, fuck all. Like, soon as I saw what they were doing, I was like, fuck all you guys.
Pretty
Y'all
much.
ain't. I'm like when I like when I see Black Lives Matter, it's like it's like saying I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna make sure I matter in this world. But then again, that's me being naive and thinking that my black people finally got it. Finally, we're actually gonna get off our ass and do something. And then I see them just causing riots, causing all kind of shit. And I'm like, fuck all you guys.
Well, yeah,
Black
wasn't the
lives,
lady who started Black Lives Matter a Marxist or something?
Yeah,
yeah,
well, all of them were. A lot.
yeah.
Even
Soon as
one
I
of the
heard her
family
say we're
members
trained
started
Marxists, I was like,
for it.
fuck you.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
and they willfully
Fuck
adopted it.
that. I'm not judging your movement if you're a Marxist. Fuck all that.
In that case,
I
I
ain't.
say no lives matter.
Well, shit. I
I
will
just,
even say this. Y'all daring to wear a shirt that says Black Lives don't matter?
mhm.
Right.
It's like I'm like right like they basically put me right back to hate my own people again because I was ready to love my people again. Like
And, yeah.
I always firmly admit like I'm the biggest critic, one of the biggest critics of the black community. It's like I hold them to a high expectation, and I'm not about to lower my expectation at all.
Hmm.
Mm.
Regardless of whether you throw in some sob story about you, well, you don't walk them out of my shoes, you don't know their lives. I don't need to know their lives.
Well,
They
you
ain't
don't
telling
know
me
my
their damn
pain.
story.
You don't need to know it. Yeah, you don't know my pain. You don't know my pain.
What pain? You ain't told me shit about your pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you judging me. I'm like,
We're
and
seeing the results. That's why we're judging you.
exactly. I'm judging you as you are, not as what you used to be. I'm sure you used to be a good person, but if you go around robbing folk, are you really? Am I really supposed to see you as a good person? You beat on this woman and took her purse, but you telling me that your mama have to slut her ass around to make
They
ends
call
meet.
themselves just good people. And I mean good loosely because what do you think it leads to when everything is what you want? When you've killed all the bad guys, and when everything is just perfect and just fair, and when you finally got it, everything that you exactly want, what happens next? Hmm?
You get complacent and lazy.
Exactly. It's just gonna be left with nothing.
Yep.
And
You
no
have
matter
no
if you
challenges.
fire one shot, no matter how right you feel, you don't know what you're doing. You have no idea who the hell is going to die, regardless. And
Look,
how
y'all
much
start look, the chat start blowing up once I start throwing in a rant. Look at that.
Mm.
Yeah.
and it's no matter what, how much blood is going to be spilled all over the ground, no matter everything is destroyed, and everything is just going to be like that until everything is going to be all the way back to the very beginning. What we're going to do, sit down and talk.
Yeah, and that's
Yep.
if we even get around to talking. Look at how
I don't even
look
know
at
if we
how
can do
toxic
that at
the
this point.
situation
Everybody's
is
so
now.
keyed
It's
up.
like it's where, yeah, it's, as far as being able to talk now, it's gone to the point where people aren't talking. Period. So,
Yeah, like I said, trial by combat.
right.
And yet, they even post themselves as a hero, but in reality, when they see themselves as a hero of someone trying to do one thing that they don't even know anything about through their own sheer naivety, they're not the hero, nor are they a hero. What
They're
they
just
really
annoying.
are is just now sad, lonely, depressed no ones caught up in their own naivety, just to expect anything better.
And a mob mentality for that matter.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
But going back to the whole school thing
Right.
again.
well, yeah.
You
That's where it all starts.
and I know I'm going somewhere with the school business. Now you got black folk advocating. Now this is before. This has been happening already before it started with the colleges, but even now it's now in the elementary schools and possibly the middle schools. But now you got blacks now be okaying segregation. I'm like, oh, so you trying to tell me
Oh, good
that our
grief.
history was a lie now? Are you telling me that the history is a fancy now? You're okay with this shit because you know that this was imposed upon us years ago, and now suddenly you want it back. I don't know the logic there. What is the logic? Well, it's for black people to have safe spaces. Safe spaces where?
Yeah.
Where's your home?
See, this is what
Uh,
I mean. A
To,
man's
to, to,
fist makes his own safe space.
well, the thing is, it's like when they talk about black safe spaces or safe spaces at all. Um, my question is, where's your home? Where you lay your head at? Where you sleep at night? Where do you sleep comfortably at night? Because if you sleep comfortably there, then there's your safe space. That is supposed to be your safe space. You live
Exactly.
in your house. You lay your head and you fill your belly up with your own food in your own house. That is where you go. That is where you go to have a safe space. Your school ain't your home. Your workplace ain't your home.
Yeah.
That is where you
Yep.
go to learn, and that's where you go to work and get your money. That is not your home, unless whatever the job is that requires you to sleep on the job and wake up and continue the job. That is not your home.
No, it is not.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Your
they tell
safe
that.
space is your home, or at least the parents that you stay with is your safe space. But you talking about some safe spaces in freaking college
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
work?
Oh, good. Oh, that reminds me of that stupid little bitch who was yelling at the college professor. Why did you get the position? He's supposed to create a home here. Bitch, fuck off. You talk like
Yeah.
that to me, I'll slap you
Yeah,
upside
when
the
I saw
head.
that video, I was like, bitch, why is you making college your home?
Well, and that's the
Yes,
thing.
you sleep in a dorm,
We've
but
infantilized
that ain't your
students.
home.
Like, it's kind
Go
of the
ahead, Trooper.
desired effect. It's a desired effect once you infantilize students, because you get the type of individuals that end up becoming dependent on government.
I'm gonna make sure I tell my niece that shit too, especially if she's talking about some safe space. I'm like, first of all, safe space is supposed to be your home. Why are
Well,
you looking for
you
it
just gotta
elsewhere?
drill them with questions, because a
Hmm.
good
Well, she
example
didn't
Hmm.
say,
is at
mind
least.
you, she ain't talking about that shit now, but like when the situation comes, If she telling something, I ain't got no safe space in my school or anywhere else, I'm gonna be right. I'm gonna be right there up front with her. Like why are you looking for a safe space there? Your safe space is your home.
Well, the
Right.
problem is they're in public school now. When I was in public school,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't really ramping up any of this socialism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
always been
Mm.
there, but it was never ramped up to this extent. So
We were not. We were in the laughing and pointing fingers phase.
yeah, so
We should
Pretty
have been a
much.
more militant phase at that time, but unfortunately, here we are.
yep.
Yep. Should have gate kept against these mofo's.
That's
Well,
why I'm
that's
seeing
been
it.
like
It's
the thing
like
that's going on in
too long
Sacramento.
have we laughed and ignored, and that gave them that when they saw that we were just ignoring them, and they took it, you know those type of people that knows that they don't like to be ignored, right? They
Right.
like they like their quote unquote voice to be heard, right?
Right.
They knew now what their advantage was. They knew it's like what Littlefinger said in Game of Thrones, and to quote Littlefinger, that's the game that they play. You know what I'm saying? That
Hmm.
my game this is the game I play. It's like they at some point somebody in their group found a way to walk among us while we were just still, laughing and pointing fingers at them and at most ignoring them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's how they were able to do that through multiple ways of getting into positions of power, either through laying with someone or whining at somebody like a petulant little child.
Be like,
Yep.
I'm right here, baby. I'm right here.
You know what I'm saying?
I love you. I love you.
Preaching to the choir, yet the
Exactly.
choir ain't fucking listening.
Yep.
Your
All I'm saying,
words might be loud, but yet the pattern is generally the same.
discipline, discipline, discipline.
Whack. Good one there, Neo Star.
Yep,
That is it. Thank you, Mister
fist of a
whatever his
Neo
name
style.
Well,
was.
the other thing that's kind of ruined marriage is social media. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Oh
because I mean,
boy.
it used to be that if you were in a small community, you met a girl, you went from there. I mean, almost always the aim was, you're gonna get married. So I mean, that was always in the back of your head.
Well,
If you
I
get
don't want to
married,
be
you get
tied
married.
down.
Well, that's the indoctrination of
Yep.
today.
Yep.
It's like
It's they look at marriage
so
as
now. So
slavery.
I mean, now we've basically set up a situation where now women resort to marrying up, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And because we push that in pop culture as far as success, they're more willing to marry up now. So the working class guy at this point is screwed. If we look at relationships,
Unless you go into
I want to say about
a
50.
rural neighborhood.
It's shifted. It's about 51% now that are not in a relationship. So
I'm saying,
that's almost 1 in 2 that don't end up marrying, which means what is the other 50% doing? The married couples, they're having kids, they're living their lives. The people that are single are miserable. So
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
now you will hear the argument, oh well, I'm single and I'm having the greatest time of my life. Yeah,
Oh,
but it's like
good for
okay, when you get
you,
home, is there anyone waiting for you there? It's like and
right?
then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
That's why it's like I tell everybody it's like the when my wife when my wife talks about like did you miss me, like of course I missed you, of course, because I'm gonna tell you right now, when you get home I'm happy that you're home because you're safe.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Just like I expect the same thing that you are thinking of the same thing as me. If I'm not around, of course you're gonna worry, especially if she calls me and she's like where were you? I'm worried. I was like I understand you're worried. I'm sorry I put that on you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to get annoyed by that, especially when it came down to family that I always get worried about. It's like don't worry about me, like, but then I come to realize like you know what? They worry because they love me. It's out. It like they do it out of love. They're not doing it out of coddling me.
Hmm.
It's like at the end of the day, it's like people like you they're still gonna check in on you and see if you're all right
Right.
because they love you. That's love. So I was
Yeah.
it's like if nobody's it's like if nobody's worried that or at least like if nobody is worried. Damn, I'm repeating myself.
If
Hang
nobody
on.
is worrying for you,
You question that. It's like if they start worrying about you, you question that. It's
yeah,
like why are you not worried about me then?
yeah,
I thought you were worried about me. Like not anymore. You kids like be careful for anybody who's listening to this. If anybody's gonna listen to me ramble and stutter a lot, stop questioning why people are worried about you, or please stop telling people that don't worry about you. Always say thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for like at least end it off with thank you for your concern. Because if the moment they stop worrying, you're gonna question it, and then you're gonna feel like you're less valued.
You're gonna feel
That's a
lonely
lot.
as hell as well.
That's the worst. That's the worst thing that could ever happen to you is if you think you're less valued now because all this time you've been telling them to not worry about you and like as soon as they start worrying about you, it's like what am
Right.
I meaningless to you now? No, you kept telling us to stop worrying about you.
Yep.
You know, it's it it's wrecking my brain on where we at now. It is really wrecking my brain at where we at now.
Sad state of affairs, that's for certain.
Hmm. It, I used to be that person that always look at the angles of these things and say, okay, that seems fair. But then again, I've said this earlier in the stream. So it's getting to the point where I'm now become the thing. I'm slowly becoming the thing that they perceive me to be the person of the enemy, or at least like
Yeah.
they perceive me to be the bad guy.
Well, it's just because their Overton window is just so far left that anything looks like right wing.
Well, it's got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Fairness is a lie. I'm
Well,
actually preaching that fairness is a
I've
lie.
already told you,
Fairness should be
fair
earned.
does not always equal, or rather, fair does not always translate to
Equal.
equal.
Yeah.
You know,
Fair is not equal. Equal is not fair.
mm-mm. No, it goes back to the principle of fair math. It's when we talk about equal, everyone seems to think everyone gets their own share of the
You get a
pie.
car.
So
You get a car.
everyone gets five. Okay, so if it's the four of us, people tend to think of equal as 25%. Fair does not always equate to that because it depends on effort, which means maybe you know maybe FF12 actually put more effort into this stream than I did. So technically, his share should be more. So then
Hmm.
the distribution is done differently. So everyone does quote unquote get their equal share based on their effort. So that does not translate to 25%. But we brainwash these people to pretty much
It's
see
the effort that
fairness
counts.
as I get just as much as you. That doesn't always work out. Life
Mm-mm.
is not fair, which means it doesn't translate to equal. It means you get as much as you put into it. So,
Like what like
Exactly. Like I
Larry
said,
Elder's
Yep.
dad
it's
said,
the
and
effort that counts.
yeah,
you get out of life as much as about as much as you put into it.
Eloise should actually be on this stream since this was her topic. As far as, oh, you guys should talk about college. I'm like, sure, I can talk about it. I have no problem with it. But I mean, what's your experience now going into a trade school? I want to know about that. Chat world wants to know about that. Me personally, I don't like talking about this stuff because it's a sore spot in terms of everything that's happening now with us socially as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Literally is rooted in the colleges. and it's treated with the same friggin' hippie professors from the 60s who more or
1960s
less took up
retreads.
a lot of these professorships, took up tenure, and now you can't freaking root them out because they've been there so freaking long. So, and they're the same freaking
They wore so
Marxists.
many masks.
They're the same Marxists who were telling you to your face back in the 60s that they were freaking Marxists. That never changed. So to hear people pretty much talk about, oh, it's woke, it came up in 2016. No, it didn't, you moron. It's like,
Nope, it
this was
started with the boomers,
like,
basically.
yeah, like this stuff does not happen in a freaking vacuum. So it's
Mm-mm.
like, this is, it's a good segue to go into, you know, what was going on with me, and especially now, like I've said, with the universities now, there's no reason to go back now. It's like you're not going to get your quality education, and you're only
Not
going to get as
anymore.
much
Nope.
education as you're willing to pay for. But that also precludes that your expectation is that university is going to give you that
And
quality
God
that
forbid
you're
you're
paying for.
white.
But here's the thing: they're not necessarily giving you the quality of education that you're paying for,
Mm.
Nope.
and that was my problem. I came to figure out real quick, you're only going to get as much education as you're willing to pay for. So if you want top tier, get ready to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. If you want to just barely skate by, then yeah, you're going to get your little, you're going
Community
to get your
college is
little
not even an
degree
option at this point.
from some podunk
No,
state
it's not.
university like UNLV, and it's not going to mean squat when you go up against all these other people applying for the same job. So,
I'm
and
saying
it,
community college is not even an option at this point because they only there to put you in one job and one job only, depending on what job that is that they specialize in. Like I said, like just
yep,
about everybody, just about most of the people that I've seen going there were wearing scrubs, like Trooper was saying. They were mostly there to be nurses, and majority of the curriculum was health oriented.
yeah, it was geared
Like
towards health services.
anything else aside from that, it was very far and few between. Like the art, like taking the art thing for example,
Hmm.
especially if I was going there for arts. You know what I'm saying? There was there was like at least like 15 courses of art, but there was 20 more courses of health stuff. It's
Mm,
like in fact you barely even had anything fitness wise going on in that school. Like you only had like 4 courses, 5 courses of fitness. Computer wise, maybe 6 or 7 courses per year. If you wanted to take that math course,
Oh, I love the propaganda of freaking women in STEM programs. I'm like, first of all, women don't necessarily gravitate towards STEM.
mm-mm.
Nope.
Again, don't judge all women by the one or two females that are gravitated towards STEM programs. It's like most of them don't like STEM. It's like how many people do you meet that love, math, science, engineering or technology? Most of them don't, because we're too busy brainwashing them into being, you know, thoughtless OnlyFan content creators. I mean, come on.
Yep.
And while that's hyperbolized, sadly, in some instances it is true. But
Oh, I like the ones
It's
that have their
ethos,
fucking.
basically.
yeah,
I like the ones that have their major on the side. I'm like, damn, you perpetuating the stripper myth.
hey, you got to make your money however you're gonna make your money. So
It's like I'm like sitting here when every time I see them have that major, that college major on their profile. I'm like, that's supposed to be that's supposed to be is that supposed to mean that I'm supposed to treat you like a human being when you
uh,
can't even treat yourself like a human being?
Hmm.
You just holding up that sign as if you're saying you're trying as if you're trying to put a face to what you're doing. So
right.
I'm supposed to be sympathetic to it. Like you're really trying to put a face to your hedonism.
Hmm.
It's like I'm sorry, but you're just an entertainer to me at this point, and not
Hmm.
even the good kind of entertainer. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
It's like you can dress all pretty, you can do the cosplay to be one with the fans, but I'm like I know why most of you guys are doing the cosplay. You know what I'm saying? It's what roping these nerds that have no ambition that can't even They can't even for the life of them talk to a girl
Mm.
and
Hmm.
look at the girl that they see that Zelda shirt. I'm like, okay, that's just a Zelda shirt. Any woman could wear that. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? My wife could wear a Zelda shirt. She's never played the games.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? She'll wear a Captain America shirt because she watched the movies. As far as fandom concerned, if she wears a Superman, she's only wearing it because she liked the Christopher Reeve Superman. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yup.
But that doesn't, now mind you, that doesn't discredit her credibility as a fan because she likes maybe because she likes one particular Superman only. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
she
Yep.
can hear me wax philosophically about my superheroes, and she'll be intrigued by what I'm saying about the superheroes. There was one time when we left Endgame, right, or at least 2 days after we finished Endgame, right, and I voiced my contempt at the fact that they made Sam the next Captain America, and she didn't say this out of disrespect. She said this out of curiosity. She asked, excuse me, she asked, but with that happening, shouldn't you be happy about that? And I straight up said with a flat no, I'm not happy about that. If it Now, mind you, had it been written in the story that Sam was going to get the shield ultimately, I would be happy about that.
Mm.
But that's not how the movies were framing it. I hate to always go back to replacement Negro. I
Hmm.
know I know Trooper get tired of hearing that.
Falcon, huh?
We don't call him by that name. He's a replacement Negro. He's a race traitor, traitor to his
Ooh.
own race. I don't go.
You need to do better, Senator.
You need to do better. Falcon used to be the face of black folk.
Mm.
You are your own superhero, the Falcon. You need to do better.
You threw away your own name just to be something you're not.
Let's call
Well,
him out.
that's
Let's
acceptable in 2021,
let's
sadly.
call him the appropriate title, House Negro.
Oh goodness.
Oh boy.
That's what he is right now, House Negro, trying to tell the man off, like oh yeah, so that this is you trying to say you still one of the black community, okay? Keep telling yourself that. Keep telling yourself that lie.
Yeah, after you
Anyway,
literally threw your name out to pretend that you're a white guy, basically.
but I digress. She asked me that question. I said no. That's not that. It was obviously going to be Bucky with the shield. But again, had they have framed that Sam was going to get the shield from the get go, I wouldn't be here complaining about it today. I would have been I would definitely accepted that Sam earned the shield. He didn't earn that shield. Bucky did. In fact, like I said, that'd be like me with another friend who I've known for all my life versus a friend I knew for only 5 years, and I'm giving away my time family heirloom to somebody to honor that friend, right? To
Right.
pass it down to make sure that he takes good care of it. Who am I going to give it to? The lifetime friend or the one I've known for 5 years?
The lifetime friend, hands down.
Exactly. Like regardless of what that person becomes in the next lifetime.
Right.
I trust that person because I've known them for a lifetime since boyhood, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you gonna trust your boyhood friend over the manhood friend that you met during maybe I don't know, a job or the military. Now, mind you, if you made a friend that you can consider a brother for a lifetime, that's also acceptable. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
Yep.
that does happen in the military. You make a friend for a lot. Well, you instinctively do that anyways because you never know when is your last.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're a ground troop. Like that man's a friend for life now. But
Yep.
that's my point. It's like given going back to my point, Bucky is his lifetime friend they wake up every day on the battlefield not knowing whether it's their last or not. So of course he's going to give it to a friend that was with him through the war from thick and thin than a guy who served his country
Right.
and is now honorably discharged.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how does he know Sam that much? But again, I digress. I don't even know where I was going with this one. I mean, oddly enough, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it
To
does.
some degree. I know. That's why, guys. That's why the show is called Wolf Commander Rambles, because I trail off sometimes. I lose my train of thought. But then again, that's what happens when you live in the house too long. I need to step outside for a while.
Some would say
Yeah,
that's part of the charm.
really now, you you flatter me. So 3 hours. So we're in the 2 hour mark. Y'all want to talk fun time?
I guess we may as well. Don't really have
Sure.
anything else to say except that we lost Final Fantasy fan there.
Uh,
He'll be
um,
back.
nothing really. I mean,
The gifts.
one thing people have to kind of keep in mind, and it can be a little daunting, the realization that if you do want an education outside of the public school system, you will have to pay for it.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm. And if
it,
and
it's almost like going to it's almost like going to a fast food joint. You're literally you're putting it together, whether you want low end, mid range, or high range in terms of cost. You have to kind of come up with that number. And that's what they're
Yep.
not going to tell you. They're just going to tell you, oh, you need to go to college. They don't tell you, oh, by the way, you know,
You need to
you're gonna,
plan.
if you want X, you're gonna have to come up with Y. Meaning, if you want a mid range education, you need to kind of, you need to vet these schools out. You need to make sure that this is what you want to do, and then not only do you have to go ahead and research that institution, you also have to take into consideration, how much you're paying for and how much you probably will get. So, you know, you might get a, okay, we'll compare. What's a good one? Um, you know what? We'll compare UC Santa Barbara and UCLA. Now they're both within that same system, but essentially, depending on your program, you might the better professor might actually be at UC Santa Barbara as opposed to UCLA. So it means you kind of have to, again, there's a lot of freaking details once you start taking this apart. Don't just jump into it just to jump into it. Um, if there's a particular professor you want to learn from, guess what? You're going to have to either you might end up paying top dollar. It might sometimes mean you have to relocate. It might also mean you might end up giving up the particular field of study that you were originally there to learn, because guess what? This professor actually you like, and now it's pushing you in a different direction. So
Yep.
while you originally were there for literary art, you might end up wanting to specialize in just American literature. And you were not there for that to begin with, but this professor more or less inspired you to go down this route. So there's that. Um, and the other thing with college is, again, you can go to any of these colleges. Any of these colleges will take you because, quote unquote, you're a debt trap. You know, so so it's figuring out which one you want to go to. You know, yeah, while it may sound nice to go to a college on the East Coast, I mean, relatively speaking, you should be looking at the type of education you'll be receiving versus whether it's going to be in a nice little town in Maine versus a big bustling city in Washington State. So,
I think what
I mean,
we
that is
really
something you do have to consider as well. I mean, some people do like Seattle, even though right now it's a cesspit of liberalism. But
yeah. What I want to say is that if anything, I think one thing is for certain is the fact that too long have a lot of people been enamored with the idea of things
yeah,
instead of just looking into the reality of things.
yeah,
Hmm.
And again, I put myself as a category of the person who was in love with the idea of it, but not
Hmm.
but not enamored enough to try to make it to a reality.
hmm
Right.
It's the same thing with a pet. Like a lot of pet owners that do know how to raise their pets right. They especially the ones that have a YouTube channel that tell you right then and there, research first before you get that pet. Like right now you're in love with the idea of that pet, but you
Hmm.
don't understand, but you're not willing to do the research to get the pet to get that pet. Like anybody will like to own a husky.
Mm,
They're
Yeah.
n- they're not always the ideal dogs. Them things are little children. Same thing with pit bulls. Pit bulls are children too.
Maine Coon cats are like that too.
hmm Like most dogs are children compared to other dogs that you would want to raise to be just that type of dog that you want as like that's kind of like an extension of yourself, like a tool. And I'm not necessarily say you're supposed to think of your pet as a tool. Of course, you gotta love your pet. Of course, you would love your pet, but like pets will look to you to give them guidance just the same as your children. And have you noticed, guys? A lot of people have become more pet owners than parents.
yeah, yeah. It's
Okay,
it's substituting
sorry,
it.
I'm back.
It's literally
Hey, pal, good to see you.
substituting
Yeah, sorry
um,
for a bit of the wait. My dad
one
started
role for
calling me.
another. So rather
Hang
than
on, final.
being a parent, it's just going to being a caretaker for an animal.
hmm
Anyways, so there is that too, because again, I mean, we're making
Glitter families. Too many glitter
well,
family.
we're making marriage less accessible. We're pushing all this. We're pushing a whole bunch of heretical things now. So now we're saying that it's perfectly normal to castrate yourself and call yourself a woman.
It's like
Um,
saying it's normal by just barricading yourself in solitary confinement.
oh yeah,
This is the new normal. That's a
Oh
that's
yeah.
an old way of thinking that you're pushing. That's a
Right.
barbaric time that you're thinking like
because
this.
heaven forbid that you can't have your many sexual encounters of a bunch of randos and
Right.
not have access to abortion as your contraceptive. I mean, the only reason we call it women's health care is because to call it abortive privilege implies the fact that it is accessible to them at any time of the day and they can pretty much do with it what they want, and that it's a luxury to be able to murder another human. That's what it is.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
we scoff at these things, but truth be told, that's what it is. It's like, we're letting these freaking women off the hook by being able to say, oh, well, the product of your promiscuity, you can pretty much
They say
get
that it's
yourself out of
normal,
by going
but
ahead and
really,
committing an
here's
abortion.
the real question here. What's even the definition of moral when they think about it?
Well,
Like,
there's no morals. Again,
yeah,
and
Nope.
like there's
I've
no
said this
definition of
before.
like,
I've
is
said
there
this.
even any definition of normal here? Like,
Well, I've said this before that
Almost whatever they want it to be on a given day.
well, I know certain people have like gotten all weird when I bring this up. It's whenever it's when you secularize a society and move them away from religion in general. This is what happens because you're substituting one thing for another. Oh, I don't like theocracy. Well, the lack of religion is what's causing the promiscuity. Uh,
hmm
the being able to tell women they can do whatever they want. They can be a man for all makes and purposes. Um,
You're telling men that they
that's
don't have to
exactly what
man
they're
up.
doing. They're going out there and they're sowing their wild oats, if you will.
Oh, but men been doing it since the dawn of time, and yet you want standards on women.
But again, you can't change biology as much as it would like to. You can't change biology.
No
So
one's no one's praising men for being sluts either.
yeah,
We men even frown upon men that sleeps with other women.
Damn right.
so
I've always done that. Like
Same.
when I see my brother have multiple girlfriends, I'm like, dude, you need to be at least you need to start learn how to be a faithful man.
You
This
learn
is
to
Yeah,
not going to
commit.
because
end well
that's
for
not
you.
love. That's just lust.
Hmm.
Damn right.
Oh, well, love is love. Love is love. Love who you want.
Oh fuck that noise.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. Pride
even if
month.
it's a horse or an 8-year-old. You know, it's like,
Fucking zoophiles and necrophiliacs.
Degenerates, every one of them.
Yeah, because apparently they're trying to make that more. Because apparently people are just more hornier and trying to have family trees look like a petting zoo than
Well,
everyone in Norse
it's always that
mythology.
that
Pretty much.
childhood saying like, why won't mom, dad, why won't you let me do the thing I want to do?
well, okay. It comes down to um, family, education, authority, and religion. So
Mm,
you remove one of those, and you start causing problems. So if you remove the family, if you will, if you remove the father or the mother from the home, you're already causing an issue. As
mm,
far as education, the more you start teaching a lot of this Marxist uh, education platform, guess what? You're just creating quote unquote more revolutionaries.
Hmm.
Authority, same thing. If you go ahead and you start implementing these Marxist policies, as far as equity, inclusion, and diversity, you get the same thing. As far as religion, you take religion out of the house, guess what? You're going to get more amoral behavior because you're substituting morality for ethics.
mm.
Morality does imply an element of creationism. And most people would say, no, 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 religion just co-opted that, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, so be that as it may, does it change the does it change any fact that most religions frown upon murder, frown upon committing crime, frown upon, sexual promiscuity, frown upon a lot of this stuff that is now socially accepted by liberals. I mean, a few years ago, we, conservatives in general, and as a collective group, if we go back, 20 years, even the 44th president was against gay marriage before. Mind you, that's what he had to say to get in. Once he got
Mm.
in, the game changed. He was calling the shots. But it's like, so now we're legitimizing, amoral behavior, and amoral behavior leads to an amoral society. So, like, you know, you
I come to
can't draw a
realize
line
that
and say
over
here and
time.
say all this diatribe stops here. Then it never stops. It keeps going further and further and further and further. I mean, this is why we're at where
Trying
we're
to
at
add
with
in some
the.
changes to their liking really doesn't change a damn thing.
Well, I was gonna say, if we're talking, in terms of California, look at where we are with California with these, statutory laws in terms of minors. It's like, it's like, did religion play a factor in that? No, absolutely not. It's the lack
Hell
thereof.
to the
It's
no.
the lack
It's
thereof.
just a lack of leadership. That's what it
Well,
is.
well, that's what they
Yup.
call it. You can call it a lack of leadership, but when it really comes down to is there's a lack of morality.
Yes.
It could
They
be
go hand in
it
hand.
could be terrible leadership, but even a terrible leader knows that committing any type of chomo is wrong. But of course, you've got those that are somehow that make their way into government and still commit that type of atrocity. So, but yeah. So I mean, my whole thing is this: while sure, you may not like religion for what it is, it's there and
Mm.
it's not going away. So either embrace the fact that you have
Mhm.
to make concessions in life throughout your entire life and know what those are. But once you know what those are, make sure that those people who are in your life don't go past those boundaries. So,
I even told my mom like as much as you want me to try to go easy on my brother, I still have to hold standards to him. if I can do it, my standards is if the oldest brother can do it, the younger brother can follow suit, or at least the
Mhm.
younger brother should be following suit because I should be the inspiration for him to do better,
Well, and here's the thing.
regardless of me having my shit together or not.
Well,
It's like if I'm making
it just
strides
opens the
to get
can
my
of
shit together,
worms. It opens the can of worms that you're held to a different standard than he is, and that may have always been that way. That he gets off the hook more often than you do. So that tells
right?
you that's a failing on behalf of the parent, and
Right.
that a sibling is not being held to a similar or equal standard as the oldest sibling. So
But of course, we have those movies that come out on some. Why can't you, like it's psychologically damaging to the young person to be compared to the eldest child. Why can't you be more like this person? Why can't you? I'm like because that. I'm like, what's so wrong with a parent trying to hold some certain expectations of their child
mm,
versus their eldest child? Like, yeah, because the eldest child did follow the footsteps of the parent.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, there are rare instances where the youngest child did succeed somewhere that didn't have to follow in the footsteps of the oldest sibling. But it's because but mostly because it was the eldest sibling that continued to inspire the youngest sibling to try. Especially when it came down to the youngest sibling encouraging them. I
Right.
take for example, Tyrion and Jane Lannister had Tywin love Tyrion, you know, more
mm-hmm,
and no and recognize Tyrion for his for his intelligence and still be enamored with Jamie's physical prowess, which when you really think about it, he tried to impart certain standards on both of those boys. When it came to Jamie, he was basically forcing Jamie to study more so he can be smart
Mhm.
rather than just this dumb jock type of person,
Mhm.
which is why Jamie is a bit well articulate. You know what I'm saying? Now you know why he's so articulate at times. Like he's still dumb muscle sometimes, but he's clever in his own way. Whereas
mm-hmm,
Tyrion, while physically not as great as Jamie, was mentally strengthened. You know, even again, he makes it clear in one of the statements to Jon Snow. He
mm-hmm.
says, "My
Mhm.
brother has a sword, and I have my books, and I take the knowledge as and like a ooh, I messed up the quote. Damn it, Schooner, I needed you." Basically, it's saying it's like I'm gonna paraphrase. It says like what I and like a sword to a whetstone, I use the books to sharpen my mind. I guess that's what I'm saying. That's kind of the quote. But
Mm-hmm.
like had he kept those two together, he would have a formidable force. Damn what he had to do with Cersei because that's a whole different story. A single dad raising a daughter, that's a whole can of worms.
Right.
Because hardly any daughter listens to a single dad. You know, it's rare when it happens though.
Yeah.
Again, it's a rarity, but a
Yep.
lot of people try the where we fit where most of these idiots fail at is that they take those rarities and over exaggerate them.
Yup.
Like you
Well,
take
what
one
often happens is usually the courts rule in favor of the mother as well. So, I
that
mean,
too.
she might be like the scum of the earth, but it's like courts still to uh, be very misandrist when it comes to giving custody over to a woman versus the father. So,
Hmm. Um.
This kind of reminds me of a conversation that I pretty much had with my dad, that something like this, that I it's kind of almost like this conversation like this, where he told me about, like, it comes down to a scale where one side will just go at each other and it's going to be off balance all the time, and it's just going to
Yep.
be back and
yep.
forth until everything is just going to be thrown off the scale to tell everyone to just shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because, yeah, as much as everyone likes to say, okay, yeah, they would support any of the LGBT, anything like that, but if it's always just going to be an endless conflict through the scale back and forth. And the only way to stop this is you have to just like stop the scale by
Yeah.
telling everyone to just shut up and look at what you're doing and figure out what you're going to do from here.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up!
Hey,
yeah,
pretty much.
Yep, exactly that. Thank you, Wolf.
Like, I will kill you, and then I will drag you out of hell and kill you again.
Shut the fuck up!
Yeah, well, not anything as like very homicidal as that guy.
Oh, I would do
was that? Far Cry
it.
3?
Do you realize how rude that was?
Like, that is a subjective, philosophical point of fucking view.
Sounds like King Julian.
I just
Yes.
can't help myself, can I?
Original King Julian, but it kills man. Alright?
Why do y'all still keep coming here? Do you know the definition of insanity?
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. I never even played those games really.
You woke up now, Neo? You haven't played those games? I got Far Cry 3 and Primal. Those are pretty good games. I did play a little bit of 4, but I got bored with 4.
I mean, just recently I've just been playing a bit of Immortals Phoenix Rising, which if you
I
ever
was just
played that,
playing Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires recently.
I got back into retro gaming somewhat. Like sometimes I'll dabble in a little bit of a Metal Slug. I'm playing a bit of playing Soldier Class and Mass Effect.
Yep.
Play a little
oh yeah, the
multiplayer.
first Mass Effect game is actually on the Xbox Game Pass.
Yep. But I bought it, so it's
I mean, I already
it's
got all
on
the Halo
digitally.
games that were on there, but yeah.
And also played a little. Got back to playing Ace Combat 7,
Nice.
which is not that bad. It's not that bad. It's. I'm just hoping that there's more. That Project Ace is developing. Hopefully, there's another Ace Combat in the works. Because it was a long time since they made another Ace Combat game. They didn't make Assault Horizon. I don't think they were the ones that made Assault Horizon. But it was since Ace Combat 6. I was like,
Mhm.
dang, that was a long time. And even then, it was still good. Like I was still shocked. I was like, man, they still make games like this, man. And I was worried about the female protagonist because like she was starting to become a bit unlikable.
Right.
Then again, she was a criminal because she was flying in a no-fly zone with her own makeshift plane, and she was ultimately shot down.
Yep.
But like she wasn't like checking everybody's privileges and all that bullshit.
Oh,
Like
good lord.
she was basically like just the next verbally K Nagase. They even mentioned, actually, as a matter of fact, they do mention. Wait, I'm talking as if you guys should know Ace Combat. Do you?
don't.
Have you guys? Exactly.
I thought I should be familiar with the name, but I'm honestly not sure. I know I haven't played it, but I thought I
It's
should be familiar with the name.
a lot of people like to slap the flight simulator. It's not technically a flight simulator. It plays like one, but you're basically fighting in all kinds of air combat. It's a very
Yeah.
very fantasy where not necessarily like that kind of fantasy. It's like it takes place in a world that's like different from our own,
Hmm.
which is like a lot of a lot of wars are dictated by air superiority, or at least in you being the protagonist, you are the ace pilot. and some wars that are fought are usually determined because of by the air superiority. So majority of the games is dependent on who has the better fighting force in the air.
Hmm.
Whereas there, like over time, like as the games progress, like there are times you fight super weapons, like like flying fortresses, uh the most advanced anti-air system that
Right.
was originally used to shoot down meteors to protect the world at large from meteor attacks. But now it's been retooled to be the most strongest anti-air battery
Hmm.
called Stonehenge, which is funny because I'm like, this is a fictional world, yet Stonehenge is a thing. Probably used it in a different context because, I mean, granted, it the name does fit. It makes sense in context the way how the anti-air system is built. So like if you ever do see Stonehenge in Ace Combat 4, which is in Ace Combat 4, you're like, okay, I see why they named it Stonehenge. But like again, you question where does that fit into? Where does Stonehenge fit into this fictional world? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But like over time, like sometimes you get to fight like things like big giant air weapons, like in Ace Combat 5, you fought the Arc Bird, or some cases in Ace Combat 0, you fight a filler boss, which is this big giant flying fortress, and you often wonder how the hell they come with the resources for this thing, but you're gonna blow up it anyways because it's a big fucking target and you want to blow it up with your jet. And the jets are hardly realistic. Like
Mm.
you got jets that carry like 180 payloads of missiles. So there's that. Oftentimes you have a limited ammo, and of course there are times like you'll do some maneuvers that will cause somebody to black out, but you're gonna do it anyways. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And like Ace Combat 7 was like the latest one in the entry where they actually started adding in some real life features that could happen in combat. Like, say for instance, if a missile was coming at you, one way of avoiding it without you having to always freaking dodge it and wonder whether it's going to overshoot you or not, you go into the clouds and the missile will lose locking.
Oh, so
That's one.
they're homing missiles.
Yeah, a
Mhm.
lot. Majority of the time they're homing missiles, but you can also use special missiles too,
Hmm.
and special weapons as well. And each one varies, and each one varies depending on what role you want to play. Either do you want to play dogfight, or you play ground assault for a mission. Now, usually you would go for the ground-based special weapons for any mission that requires you to attack ground units,
Right.
and you would go with special missiles that target air, basically air to air special weapons and air to ground special weapons. But you will want to go with air to air weapons for dogfights.
Right.
And sometimes well, not no, you earn points to buy new ships. That's usually the aim of why you want to keep playing and replay is to buy more ships, or at least buy all of them, because all the ships that you fight in look pretty nice. And you usually start with your basic bitch plans like Harriers and other jets that don't look that very appealing until you finally get enough money or you progress through the level to unlock more planes like F-22 Raptors or Su-37 Terminators, which is the Russian jets. You know, and so like if you now here's the kicker that I never knew was a thing until I saw somebody play the very first entry of Ace Combat. Sorry, there's a helicopter flying over me. I'll let it pass for a bit. Okay, it's getting far away. Okay, now I continue. Um, depending on how well you perform in each mission, or at least if you perform specifically a certain way, or at least you think you gotta get a grade. Depending on how, if you get the same ranking over and over throughout
Mhm.
every mission, you unlock a special jet, which is a
Mhm.
future jet. And I was like, oh wow, the many times I played this game, and that was a thing. Wow, and you can still unlock that same jet in every entry of every Ace Combat. Just now, each Ace Combat has a different way of how
Hmm.
you how you unlock it. Or at least it's the same way, but they add extra stuff to it. Is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Like you can still play a jet in Ace Combat 5, Ace Combat 0. You can even unlock the special jet that you fight at the end of Ace Combat 0. It's a fun series though. Also, if you fly in a certain way in Ace Combat 7, you kind of lose slight control of your plane for a while. If you can try to manage to bank it away from it, because updrafts will lift you in the air, and sometimes you can fly like autopilot with that thing.
Hmm.
So that's a thing too. I was like, oh my goodness, this is this is what they have to offer. I'm loving it. But like I said, not where I'm going with Ace Combat series. They don't always they handle the same, but they don't oftentimes play the same. You dig?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like Ace Combat is your standard, you know, missile shoot, missile shoot, missile shoot, chase, 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 missile shoot. Ace Combat,
Oh.
Ace Combat 5 puts you in control of the team system, which you have you're playing squadron, and you have wingmen, and you can have them
Right.
attack, support, or defend. You know what I'm saying? How that's implemented well, I can never tell you, because oftentimes they're usually doing their own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ace Combat
Sounds very.
6.
I mean, I
Go ahead.
know. Sorry about that. You're about to talk about Ace Combat 6, but I don't know why I'm just already. Even though it's completely different from it, I don't know why I'm just starting to now think about Star Fox because of that.
Star
Mhm.
Fox wishes it was Ace Combat. I one time made a comment in one of the YouTube videos. I forgot which one. I was like, if only Star Fox had the same combat gameplay as Ace Combat.
Mhm.
Imagine that, or at least the style play the or at least the play style of Star Wars Rogue Squadron, the very first Rogue Squadron. Imagine
Mhm.
if Nintendo ever thought of doing it that way. Imagine how that would have
Yes.
been.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, they kind of do.
Well, they kind of did with I think they kind of did with Assault, Star Fox Assault, because majority of the gameplay in Star Fox Assault was mostly all range mode, and that's the problem I had with that game. Was like it only played one mode throughout the rest of the game. Like you hardly ever had that one gameplay where you're just flying straight, like in Star Fox 64. Like you had one level that
Yeah,
pushed
even
you
in
in
the very
flight mode.
first Star Fox, you even fly straight.
Yeah, like it's basically that arcade style of fighting until you get into all range mode where you have to fight a boss, or you fight several enemies and then a boss shows up, or you fight several enemies and then you complete the mission.
Mhm.
Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you also had levels where you're just arcade shooting basically.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they would have stuck with that play style, especially with Star Fox Assault. But Assault was mostly, truth be told, Assault was mainly a multiplayer game. It was meant to be played as multiplayer. That's what they were
Right.
selling with. That's where I realized what Star Fox Assault was. I was like, oh, that's basically what this is, because majority of the time I'm playing all range mode, right?
Right.
There are times you do get into a rail shooter section in one of the missions, but majority of the gameplay is you playing all range. I'm like, this is mostly a multiplayer game.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's what it's meant to be. 'Cause like you like Star Wolf and maybe Panther or Leon. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? but you're mostly just playing you're meant to play with four other people and compete. You're
Mhm.
not really there for the story.
Mhm.
But back to Ace Combat, like I said, yeah, the gameplay is the same, but they're now as far as the gameplay is concerned, throughout the whole series, it's the same, but over time they add some more features to it. That's what I'm saying. Like they play the same, but they handle differently over time. Like they're always experimenting. That's why I say like in Ace Combat 1, that's your basic gameplay with Ace Combat. Four,
Mhm.
technically four, if you want. It's one when you go into the whole Ace Combat title, because the very first Ace Combat was Air Combat on PlayStation.
Mhm.
But when we got to the fourth entry, it became Ace Combat.
Mhm.
So I usually call it Ace Combat 1 for the title alone. But Ace Combat 4 was your basic gameplay.
Mhm.
Ace Combat 2, team play. Technically, you're playing with computer controlled characters. Ace Combat Zero gave you this pseudo nice one, Neo Star.
You're playing a wolf commander.
Funnily enough, there are some characters that you play that have call signs that are kind of like that. Like in Ace Combat 5, you're playing War Dog, which gets rebranded later on in the story as Rosgreaves. I'll let you guys experience that. There's a lot of gameplay videos for that,
Mhm.
so you'll know it'll make sense in context. Gone One was Gone One Gone One was in Ace Combat 6. So I'm going a bit
Mhm.
too ahead. In Ace Combat Zero, you were Demon Lord,
Mhm.
but I forgot what your call sign was. That was your nickname on the battlefield, though. And in Ace Combat Zero, that had a pseudo morality system: Knight, Mercenary. I think that's it. Knight and Mercenary. Mercenary is when you finish off
Mhm.
fleeing enemies, or you attack targets that are not your targets. You're basically fighting like a mercenary. But if you are actually playing honorably, you're a knight. And depending on how you play, it affects the story two ways.
Mhm.
And you're playing different aces too, playing against different aces on the battlefield. So sometimes you'll fight a squadron, or maybe you'll fight two pilots. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Also, um, Ace Combat Zero is actually a prequel to the whole series. I think the whole series, the Belkin War, in a way.
I mean, given that it has
Mhm.
zero in the title, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good way of how you do a prequel right.
I mean, yeah, Resident Evil kind of did much the same. I mean, that's
Hmm.
basically where it all started. Because I mean, it's even where you get to learn much more about the employees of the Umbrella Corps, before you get to the Arclit Mansion.
Yep.
Mhm.
Six is counted as the weird one. I don't know why, but like I guess it's because you know, people tend to worship the pilots. So they got this saying in Grace Mario. That's the location. By the way, don't look for any real life locations in Ace Combat. Ace Combat has fictional countries. That's why I mentioned Belkin. There's or rather Belka, um, Oceana, Ustio.
Mhm.
Is it a very
Um,
science fiction setting?
oh, it's heavily science fiction,
Oh,
considering what you fight later on in the entries. Like I said, giant warbirds, not literal warbirds, but I'm saying giant planes, like almost Metal Gear levels giant.
well,
Most of the weapons they use look like they came from fucking Metal Gear, but then again, I believe it's done by Namco and
Mhm.
Konami for a while until they switched over to Namco Bandai.
or Bandai Namco actually,
Yeah, Bandai Namco.
which aren't they even responsible for doing a lot of the? Yeah, yeah. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I was about to think like, yeah, weren't they even responsible for Tekken and Soul Calibur? And then I realized, oh yeah, they actually were. Never mind.
Hmm. But remember that They're the publishers, not the developers.
Oh, they were the publishers. Never mind.
Yeah, the developers were the developers for Ace Combat is Project Ace,
Oh,
whereas obviously Namco, I think Namco did develop Tekken,
yeah,
but
because
but
like
another but another company developed Soul Calibur, Project Soul, I think.
yes,
Yeah, it's Project Soul.
yeah,
So yeah. But yeah, in Grace Maria, again, another fictional country in Ace Combat, they had this saying called "Go dance with the angels" or "Dance with the angels." I was like, okay, this is a little bit too. This is stretching the fancy a bit too far. I guess I'm like, I'm guessing this is the reason why people kind of felt this was a bit weirder than the previous entries. Because at least like even though they were fancy, they still had a little bit of groundedness to them as far as culture is concerned. And of course, there what was interesting about some of the Ace Combat games was that you can kind of sense where certain cultures were meant to be something, but they were rebranded as something else. So when you get to Ace Combat Zero, it has a more of a Italian motif to it. So some of the enemies that you're fighting kind of had a bit of a Italian to them. Or Grace Mario is like some stand-in for Sweden, I guess, or Poland, or Germany, maybe. And of course, Ustio might be American. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that front, but the way how they operate with their tactics, it kind of screamed American.
Mm.
But I don't want to talk your guys' ear off more than I need to about this because my passion is coming out now because that's how much
Oh,
I
go
love
ahead.
that franchise. The only one I say what was a big downgrade, and I actually rewatched the gameplay footage for that one was Ace Combat Assault Horizon because they chose to go the real life route to it to appeal to the Call of Duty crowd,
Right.
and it shows. It really shows. Like regenerative health is added to the fucking plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you get damaged, you run away. Health regen. Like your armor is dictated by the percentage. Your hull. I mean, it's like if you get damaged, it'll show you the percentage. None of that shit is on freaking Assault Horizon. The controlling is terrible. The graphics is totally different. I was like when I went back to watching it, I was like, how the hell did I survive this game?
Mm-hmm.
The the the, the main character has no face in the Ace Combat series, and they gave the character a face, and he's all American through and through. And they gave and you got quick time events and previews. I was like, okay, we'll roll with it. I would say the only good thing about that game was the dogfight system that they implemented, which is you get into dogfight mode, you do a close up and you do a critical hit on the jet. However you want to do it, you shoot your gun or you fire your missiles or whatnot, or you can use special weapons and you lock on many multiple enemies. But the problem is that it's so clunky as shit. You know, half the time it's thrilling. Another time it's a minor annoyance because you'll be in the middle of trying to take out a key target, right? All of a sudden, dogfight mode. I'm like, oh fuck! Now I gotta dodge this motherfucker, and now I gotta retrace my step where the fuck I'm supposed to be at. So yeah, it at times it's fun and exciting. Other times it's a fucking hassle. But we don't really talk about that one that much.
it would have
In the
been fair if it would have just been a different franchise. That would have been like at least something like
well,
that.
there was a. I will say this: there was a competing franchise, Hawks, from Tom Clancy's branch, and that one was actually not that bad too. Actually, I kind of wish there was a Hawks 3 actually, because I had a Hawks 2 and my brother played that mess like crazy, and dabbled in it a little bit too. Like ever since Ace Combat blew up, there was like a lot of jet games like Heat Seekers, Top Gear, not Top Gun, Top Gear for the GameCube. I don't know the quality of the gameplay of those games, so don't ask me. But they were adequate, I guess. From what I heard, they're pretty adequate. But Ace Combat stayed to this day the dominating combat simulator. I mean, it's got 7 entries and some spin-offs that I never heard of.
Yep.
Ace Combat Infinite, that was on the PS3,
Yep.
or at least the PSP, I think. But yeah, Neil Star. Sky Kid and the Blue Max. No, there was Mobius 1 for the first game. Blaze for the second game. If you're the main character, you're playing Blaze in the second game. Third game was again Demon Lord. I forgot his original call sign, but you had a partner there called Solo Wing Pixie.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm looking at Trooper's private chat on MeWe. Anyways, Gom 1, I forgot what your layer called in that game. In Ace Combat 6, I mean. In Ace Combat 7, now this is interesting. You're a Suicide Squad in Ace Combat 7. You're actually playing playing a prisoner that was tried for killing off one of the government official. But from your perspective, somebody shot that plane down, but you were in the vicinity, so they put you as the fall guy, and now you're working off your debt to society, and they don't care whether or not you live or die. And over time, the crew that you're working with dies every two missions or so. I
That's
was like,
insane.
fuck me! I'm playing a fucking Suicide Squad. Fuck yeah, let's go.
Eat your heart out, Harley Quinn.
Hell yeah! Funny enough, a lot of things, a lot of key things that deal with in Ace Combat 7 is like people are not safe. They're going to die no matter how much you try to help them. Like even if you have the power to help them, they're gonna die. Like I was like going after this ace pilot that's going to kill this one female character, and I thought I was going to control the outcome on that one. Ever since the moment I tried it, she still ended up dying.
Oof.
And he's a bad motherfucker because you try to shoot him and he dodges your shit. And he's an old guy, mind you, flying an experimental jet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another beauty about Ace Combat's writing. Nobody's nobody's necessarily a bad guy in this story. This is how the whole theme of Ace Combat period is war is hell. Everybody spilled blood on both sides,
Exactly.
and it's told very greatly in Ace Combat 0.
Yeah.
Like you get to see the again, going back to the ace pilots that you fight in that game, they got faces now, and you get to see them really played by real people and really good acting by said people. So I stuck with the series for the longest time, and I've stayed loyal to it.
That might be one of the reasons why. Okay, even though I'm not a bit far into the series just yet, might be one of the reasons why Halo Reach is kind of one of my favorite Halo games by far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels very short, yeah, even though there's only, 12 missions, I believe?
Oh,
Yeah,
and if you're looking for female characters that are strong in Ace Combat, you'll find them.
Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, because, everyone... Yeah, Noble Team, which that's the characters that they're... Yeah, the main characters in the story of Halo Reach.
Noble One.
Yeah, they actually all die except for one of them because he's still around.
Yeah.
It's June. He's the sniper of the team.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but each of the characters' deaths are either very, yeah, they're pretty almost symbolic,
They
or
matter.
yeah, like Kat, who's the Noble Two. She is obviously the brains of the team, but yet her death, she gets shot in the head by a sniper.
Mhm.
Or Carter, Noble One, the team's leader, he dies for his team in a plane into a Covenant robot. I forgot what it was.
It's a saying as regardless of whether how good they are, something wrong is going to happen. Like you still show
Exactly.
them as competent in what they do, but something does go wrong. Meaning fate is at work here. It's like
Yes,
they're fate
because
to die. They're
war
fate to
is
die.
no game.
Hmm. It's like nope.
Hmm.
Like that's technically how you're supposed to write somebody expertise, and you still want them to die. You don't write them incompetent at their job.
Because who would hire them to do it?
It's like
Exactly.
look, it's like somebody will list off. Well, as you know, I'm a skilled technician.
Right.
Once I get on the job and start working on the system, oh, I'm having a hard time getting this. I need more time, bitch. Didn't you say you were one of the best top technicians?
Yeah.
That should be like a cakewalk for your ass.
Yep.
That's Halo 5 in a nutshell.
It's like they did like a cakewalk, but they still end up dying.
Yes,
It's like ain't S.J. Hubble will say, well, they still died. That means they're not the best. Like, no, they died doing their job.
exactly.
That counts for something. Like if they sacrifice their lives so that others had lived doing their job, that means a job was done. The
Exactly.
problem is it came at the expense of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between a heroic sacrifice and just plain being dumb and dying.
Which a lot
Oh yeah.
what I hear happens in Star Trek STD.
Yeah.
Like
Man.
everybody's just playing incompetent at their job, and it costs a lot of people deaths because apparently a lot of people like seeing people blow up in ships now. That's what they think Star Trek is all about.
Hmm.
And yet
Now,
people can even say the same thing for Star Wars.
look, if I wanted to write a story about the red shirts and how good their job they really are, and try to elevate them to more than just red shirts, I would do that. These motherfuckers think that they're writing for the red shirts. And
Yep.
they're really and truth be told, from what I'm seeing, if that's what the aim was, you're not doing a good job doing a proper representation of the red shirts.
Which is funny because their education is that they basically are red shirts. Them, when you think about it,
Hmm.
they're just there to basically be expendable.
What I'm saying, what I'm saying is, if you want to not really make them a meme of everybody dies when you have the red shirt, you'll make a red shirt actually live for once.
Yep.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
where he grows out of being the red shirt and becomes something more.
I'm saying like if you ever have an episode where no red shirt dies at the beginning of the damn mission,
Right.
that would be something. Like if you want to change Star Trek, change it through that way. You know,
Yep.
it's like that was the running gag in many of Star Trek fans. Like of course a red shirt going to die because that's what they're good for. Wait, a red shirt lived?
Yep.
That's a first in a long time,
Yep.
Hey, now we can't start subverting expectations. That's not how this works.
right?
Right.
But like I said, if I wanted to write a story about the red shirts, I definitely would. That's if I wanted to, but I'm not a showrunner, am I?
Nope. Nope.
I can write a fanfic about that. The red shirts, something like that.
Something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anybody else want to talk about something fun? I don't want to take up too much of this chat.
Oh, you mean you
Um.
done?
Would you say, Trooper?
I said, oh, you done? Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say like
jeez.
shut
Yep.
up.
Um,
I don't know. I
You're
mean,
one to talk.
well,
I
it's not like I have anything to pop culture wise really talk about. I mean, pop culture is kind of dead right now. So
Yeah.
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 Though, um, just recently I've just been trying to get into some of J.R.R. Tolkien's work. So that's when I went to uh a bookstore that's right down that's just like one block away from my dorm, and
yeah.
I found The Lord of the Rings, and that is basically where I found that, and I decided I would read that because I just wanted to write. If I wanted to write more fantasy, I wanted to read a lot of Tolkien's work. I would just eventually I may get to C.S. Lewis eventually once I may eventually find the Chronicles of Narnia.
I mean, you could, man. It's the
Right.
reading itself for Lord of the Rings. Like your brain's gonna fall out your ear, but I mean, it's good. It's good reading. So
Yeah, because the thing is, a lot of fantasy these days they always follow the footsteps of Tolkien's work because Tolkien is always described to be the grandfather of high fantasy.
he really is. He really
Hmm.
is. Um, One book I can totally get behind, and I should say, if you can get your hands on it, you should. Is Tolkien's Unfinished Tales. A lot of that stuff is more or less tied together somewhat as best possible by his son. But if you really want some of his like early stuff in terms of history of Middle Earth, you're gonna find it in the Unfinished Tales. And there's just so much like work that went into Lord of the Rings. Like it's not like he just wrote this book out of the blue. I mean, there's like notes upon notes upon notes. Like Middle Earth has history on top of history.
Yeah,
So
because Lord of the Rings is literally mythology,
it literally is. It's its own mythology. It's its own world. Like
and
it,
that's what he wanted to do.
yep, yep.
Wanted to
So I
create a
mean, that'd be one
mythology.
of that would be one of the books. If you can get your hands on that, get your hands on that. So let me see if I can find it really quick. See if I can get on. See if I can get you cover here.
One, carry the two, and
Let's see what happened was, and this game called Ace Combat. Right, here we
shut
go.
up.
Copy. Well,
That's one game development team, or at least one of several Japanese game development teams will never go woke.
if you can get your hands on that book and that particular cover, that's literally the best cover.
Awesome.
um, it's gonna be hard getting a first edition. If you're all about first editions, but it's still possible. It's also a real pain in the rear to try to get it as mint as possible as the one that you see here. $15 is actually a really good price for this book. Um, you're gonna see it between the 10-15 price range. I mean, my books, if I have to buy a book, I don't like them to have any dings or anything on the book cover or anything like that, any folds or anything like that. When you buy used books, it's always going to be something you're going to deal with. You're always going to deal with someone else's lack of care when it comes to these books. So, but yeah, that is probably one of the best books to actually get your hands on.
Hmm.
So,
Like, does it contain like is it like a series of short stories that's tied in within the Lord of the Rings?
uh, this all happens before Lord of the Rings. This is all
Oh,
this is all history of Middle Earth that happens before we get
It's
to
like
the events of the Lord of the
kind of
Rings.
like around the Cimmerillion, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
A little older than that, but yes.
Yeah.
Like again, like Middle Earth has like its first second age, and it's like it's crazy. So, but that is basically one of the best books. There's more, obviously. There's more volumes that you can get your
Hmm.
hands on, but that for me, I actually had that book, lost it, and had to more or less get my hands on it again. So,
Hmm.
so I can tell you that it's a pain, but if you can actually start collecting these, then you're off to a head start in terms of world building.
Okay.
That's another one too.
And
Lays of Valerian. So that's
okay.
like you're gonna have to like get a hold of all this pre Lord of the Rings stuff, and if you can do it, do it. I mean, it's some of the best stuff. It's I tend to think it's even better than Lord of the Rings because it's all unfinished history. It becomes almost its own myth and legend. So
I mean, I do already have the movies of both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit back in my old house.
Oh wow.
well, here's the thing. Here's
Wow.
the thing. Those movies are Peter Jackson's interpretation. Now, if you love those movies and then you read the book, you can see where the inspiration came from. It's not one of those where it's like with the Harry Potter novels where it's best to see the movie before you read the novel because if you read the novel and then see the movie you'll be very disappointed. So
Hmm.
but in terms of like say watching the Harry Potter films before you read the novel, it kind of gives you a basis to kind of go ahead and create the world in your
Yeah,
mind's
because I
eye.
mean, I am pretty well of the few differences from the books and the movies of Harry Potter. Like Hermione's definitely not Emma Watson in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
she's not her mama me.
yeah.
Nope.
I always call that's why I call Emma Watson's Hermione, her mama me, because she's always trying to mommy everybody.
Well, and then the other thing too, it's like the ending that was written
No, go to your rooms, bitch.
for
Who you to
the
tell me to
ending
go
that
to
was
my
written
room?
for this series was just so I was like, okay, I'm like, this is trash. Like you almost want to throw like the last few chapters of like Deathly Hollows into the garbage because it's like it's I don't remember if J.K. Rowling actually fully admitted to. I think she did, if I remember right. At one point, Hermione and Harry were supposed to end up together, but then it was subsequently changed. Like a lot of stuff ended up changing. So, and it's like out of nowhere, Harry ends up with with
Jenny.
what? Yeah, and I was like, oh, so he married into the freaking hand-me-down family? Like I was not a big fan of the Weasleys to begin
Uh,
with. Like I
married the
mean,
same,
uh,
married exactly the same family where he met his very first friend before he went to Hogwarts.
yeah,
mhm.
right. So it's like, I guess, man. I'm like,
I mean,
it's
didn't
not at the
Ginny
level.
always had like a crush on Harry in the books?
If
I mean,
you
I know she did in the movie, but in the books,
in the books are very different because it's not.
I think
It's a,
they mentioned she get flustered whenever time Harry's around.
yeah, and you could interpret that in very many different ways.
mm,
So, but
Right, not
you
just
know,
a sense of having a girl crush on, at least a reasonable crush on Harry. Just that's the
yeah,
boy who lived. He might be cursed. I don't want to be anywhere around him. I
I
heard
don't
what
know who
happened to
this
the
guy
last
is.
students
Yeah,
who were
yeah,
that close.
yep,
You know, she has you know one could say an irrational thought towards Harry.
yeah. So
you
yeah,
know
I
what they
mean,
say with a lot of fantasy characters? They always, they always get every one of the girls, which is why Link is no stranger to a lot of the girls when they keep throwing themselves onto him.
Freaking Twilight Princess has a fucking myth, and I was all for that shit.
Yeah.
Like the one thing people always harp on is that Peter Jackson was able to write out Tom Bombadil in terms of Lord of the Rings, and to me, that doesn't matter. I'm like, it's still a very good film. Tom Bombadil is not someone that freaking changes the plot. I'm like, yeah,
Mm-mm.
I'm
Tom
like,
Bombadil is a filler character.
yeah, it's like, bye. So, okay,
It's like nobody really
it's one of
mentions him
the,
ever again after he shows up.
yeah, it's one of those examples of uh
Like
where
everybody
you
was
can
hoping
still have
Patchface would
very
show up.
fantastic film and it's true to the book as true as it can be to the book.
Right.
Whereas the Hobbit trilogy is something completely different. It's one of those, it's like you had maybe two films there. Maybe two films.
Dare I say, I don't even like the way how Ares Targaryen was portrayed in Game of Thrones. I was like, that's
Well,
Ares Targaryen.
Game of Thrones is one of those examples of author writing themselves into a corner. Because where was George R. Martin gonna go?
Hmm.
Like, work without bringing in a whole bunch of freaking people to help
I'm
him
just saying,
write
like they
math.
had Bran time traveling and experiencing certain events from the lore, and I'm like, my biggest gripe was that's how they chose to portray Aerys Targaryen, this fat fucker. At least he wasn't fat. It's just the clothes that he was wearing made him look fat. I was like, wait a minute, that's supposed to be Aerys Targaryen. I'm
Yeah.
like, that he's supposed to be gangly with long fingernails. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
I can already see these like freaking uh these casual viewers, and I won't use any pejoratives or anything to put down the everyday idiot, but like these people, the same people that just show up for every freaking film because they got to watch something. Like, they're going to be uh they're going to be that target audience that's going to find Dune, quote unquote, problematic, or not even problematic. When I use the word problematic, it implies someone that's on the ideological left. They're going to not understand it, or they're going to say that it's too complex, or it's too long, or it's too boring, or
I hear that conversation a lot of the times when talking about Kingdom Hearts.
yeah. And it's like, unless you understand what Dune is, you won't appreciate it when you see it. So
That's why I'm hearing shit about the defense of the whole change of Leah Kynes, that it needs to be updated to a more modern setting, or at least it was too ancient for its time. I'm like, bitch, who is you? Like it, like they were
It's
saying is a
fantasy. What?
no. The thing is they always bring whenever time they talk about old works like this, they're like it's a product of its time. I'm like, bitch, a minstrel play was a product of its time. Any negative depictions of minorities during the 20s was a product of their time. You don't put any form of work that came after any of that as a product of their time. Just because you have a hard time finding anybody that looks like you in those books, or at least you have a hard time with your illiterate minded self, can't read the prose that the writers write to really identify any character that could potentially be a minority or not, right?
mm,
I'm
right.
like if you have a problem with that, that's a problem of you, not the writer. That's a problem on you, and that's a problem on you that you're still trying to look for somebody that looks like you in these books.
Yeah.
Before before Muslims ever immigrated to this country, there weren't that many Muslims. So you not, of course, you're not gonna find a Muslim in that book.
Nope.
You know, in a certain book that you picked up that had a pretty little cover that attracted you. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
this is what this is like a representation versus identity validation part 11. It's like
I'm tempted to make another one.
yeah, it's like they don't tend to think of these things in terms of you know evolving timelines. It's like
When they say something like that, I'm like, so it's the book's fault that you can't seem to find you can't find yourself in any book of that time.
oh yeah, I mean look at what we look, I mean look at uh quote Marvel heroes as Kamala Khan now. It's
Yep.
like she's a product of this particular moment in time where suddenly we're all about freaking shoehorning any minority under the sun to be able to say, hey, look, we have our token, Tibetan monk superhero. It's so they got to
from
have
a
one every flavor now, or else it's considered offensive not to. So it's
from
like,
a religion that abuses their own women and
yep,
rape their little boys.
Oh
oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, y'all don't think I know about that, do y'all?
Uh, it just reminds me of what's going on right now in freaking Nevada, like literally throwing itself on its knees, like, please send us more people. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So,
Like, you
Government
got
can't
plenty
fix
of
it.
resources. What do you need more for?
Well, here's the thing. Like with all the quote unquote resettlement going on, it's literally target districts that are normally in swing states that they're throwing these people at to quote unquote keep those districts blue, if you will. Because outside of Clark County here in Nevada, like the only other county that is remotely blue is maybe Carson, and everything else is literally red. And it's one of these things where literally it's one or two counties that has an entire stranglehold on the state, just like you have in freaking California with freaking LA and San Francisco. So,
Okay.
but yeah, LA County, and then of course you have all the idiots in San Francisco that are giving out hypodermic needles to the homeless because, oh well, if they're gonna shoot themselves up, then they should have a clean needle doing it. And I'm like, yeah, but
Oh, good grief.
yeah,
That's
but you're,
still
well,
you're
you know
still
what?
being part of the problem.
What was it? Brian, you know who's also getting a ton of these freaking people? New Jersey is. Uh,
Oh man.
I think. Well, I posted it on MeWe. You'd have to go look for it. I thought one of the cities in New Jersey that's going to be soaking up some of these quote unquote air quote refugees
Oh great.
is Highland Park, if I remember right.
Highland Park. Oh great. That's not related to Atlantic Highlands, is it?
Like I'd have to look. I'd have to look. I'd have to go to MeWe and see if I can find that. See if I can find it really quick. It's one of my posts that while I was up like late last night trying to go to sleep when I couldn't go to sleep that I posted it because I came across it while I was doing my hours and hours and hours of narrative research to keep up with everything.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I will tell you right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Neostar on this. Like,
Bingo.
what's the point of modernizing something that's already done? Like,
Yeah.
In
everything's already
fact,
been said and done.
Dune, going back to Dune, Dune is actually the epitome of modernization. Like, it's got a fucking female faction that controls majority of the fucking galaxy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Most
Yep.
most of the men don't move unless the women move them.
These people have about 19 options of where they can go. Okay. New Jersey being on the list, in alphabetical order, it's going to be Northern New Jersey to include
Yeah.
Elizabeth. Yeah, to include Elizabeth and Highland Park.
Oh great. Benny's on steroids.
Allah, Allah, Allah. So
Ducker, ducker, ducker.
but
Allahu Akbar. Allahu
well,
Akbar.
get this. I mean, they're being given options like Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, Baltimore, Maryland, St. Louis, Missouri. Does this start now to make a pattern that they're being sent to these like urban hellholes?
Oh yeah.
Raleigh, North Carolina. I just mentioned New Jersey, Las Vegas, Nevada. Cesspit raised hand. Buffalo, New York. Cleveland, Ohio. Portland, Oregon.
So
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
basically
Pittsburgh,
the bluest
Pennsylvania.
of the blue areas.
Yes, Austin, Texas, which is
I
literally the
respect
bluest
men like
portion in
you.
Texas. Yeah,
Men
Dallas,
with
Fort Worth,
courage.
Houston, Texas, and
But
Salt Lake
you
City.
are a
Salt
slave
Lake
to
City
your emotions.
is like become
Rubicante.
very weird liberal. I
Yep,
mean, they
a
had
fan
what
favorite
Salt
boss
Lake
in
City
Final
Pride
Fantasy
over there
IV.
and all that. Like,
Yep.
it was gross. So
Anyways, I think it's a good time to wrap it up.
I think
Alrighty.
so. I'm starting to
yeah,
fade myself.
yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Those two or three of you.
Right.
Do y'all think
Hey,
this was a bust? I don't think so. I think this was fun.
Yep.
Anyways, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Thank you those for listening to us, starting with Trooper FN 2525.
Hey everyone, it was super fantastic talking about college experiences. We can always revisit this again. Again, just keep in mind, your quality education is literally going to amount to how much you're willing to pay for it. Uh, Also, I would say don't count out trade schools. A 2-year trade certificate is just as good as an associate of applied science 2-year degree. Uh, go ahead and hit that bell. Make sure it's on. Make sure that your notifications are turned on. Something's going on with YouTube right now. And always go ahead and put comments into the comments. That helps the algorithm out. And this is Trooper FN2525 signing out.
Go ahead, the Maverick Hunter Saint Brian Gil Martin.
Yeah, we thank you guys all for coming and joining us and having a big talk about college experiences. And my apologies that I could not contribute much more since I never actually went to college and went straight to the workforce. But anyway, this has been a fun stream, and this has been Brian Gilmartin. No damage to report. Moving to next area.
Thank you for joining us. Our guest speaker, Final Fantasy Fan 012.
Now, I'd like to thank you guys very much for watching. If you like what you saw, please click like and subscribe and share with your family and friends. This is Final Fantasy Fan 12, and remember, may the light forever shine upon us.
I'd like to thank everybody again for joining us. Again, there's no shame in homeschooling your kids either. Homeschool is always an option. Public school is a drag and a bust at this point,
Mm-hmm.
unless school reform is happening, or what's that thing that people are trying to push? School choice, right?
I think charter schools, I believe.
It's going to be another alternative to homeschooling. I can't say that they're any better. I mean, you need to check out the curriculum. You need to kind of vet
Yep.
faculty, and then it
Yep.
really comes down to what you can afford and what you're willing to uh, entertain in terms of homeschooling, because um, there are other groups in your in your city that also do homeschool. It's just getting in touch with those people and kind of working out a plan. Like you might not yourself be actually homeschooling your own child. It could be a group of parents that actually homeschool your kid. So I mean, there's different ways of doing it.
Mm,
Some
mm.
parents are very hands on and homeschool their own kids, and then they kind of network and kind of trade off, in terms of how they do the particular subjects. One parent might actually be, a former, a former earth science major. So there you go. And it's like, so it just depends. But
Right.
definitely the way to go, especially in 2021, the only way to tackle this quote unquote critical race theory is through homeschooling. It's not going to be in the public schools like these parents want to do. Um, you don't pay for public education. The government does. You actually pay the government. So the government pretty much tells these public agencies what they can and cannot do. And if they're willing to allow CRT to seep into the schools, then guess what? You have no control. Parents like to believe that they have control over these school boards. At the very end of the day, they don't, because they're still going to do whatever they want to do. The only way to have direct control over your child's education is to homeschool.
And pull them away from the schools.
Yeah, and
Just get
plug
them
them
out
out
of
of the
there.
system. Yeah,
Get out of
but
public
stick
schools.
to it. You got to stick to it. The whole thing is just make sure you don't stop halfway, and then throw your kid back into public school only to give them a culture shock of what's really out there versus, you know, the world of homeschooling is completely different. So
That being said, I like to think, keeps thinking. Whatever. Look, I'm tired. I'm getting hungry. I'm gonna leave off with this. You are the UN Spacey. Welcome to the Wolf Fleet, and I'm not gonna house. So I'm gonna leave you guys with a blast.
Tonight, you pukes will sleep with your rifles. You will give your rifles a girl's name, because this is the only pussy